Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. We are resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 5. And this meeting is being held in person and via Zoom for anyone who would like to participate remotely, and also being live streamed on our YouTube channel if anyone would just like to watch the proceedings. With that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the afternoon agenda.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'll start just by noting one schedule change. We do have a last minute layover. It was to be the last item of the day. Item 11, LPC 23-11234, 105 Chambers Street, the Cary Building individual landmark. That will not be presented today and will return at a future date. Thank you. We'll now move to the first hearing item after lunch. That's public hearing item number 5, LPC 23-09092. It's an application for an amendment. It's in the Borough of Manhattan, block 590, lot 20. 16 Jones Street in the Greenwich Historic District Extension 2. This is a colonial revival style house designed by Delano and Aldrich and built in 1928 with alterations in 1930. The application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 19-29-116 issued on September 14th, 2018 to construct an addition.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Gilles Depardon from Regard Depardon Architects. I'm here representing the Greenwich House Pottery Studio. Fabio is the director who's going to speak right after me. This is an amendment to, as was just said, we were planning to do, and I just flipped to the pages. So this is the area. The area with the two little arrows. It's an L-shaped building. There's a 3-story building on one side of it and a 2-story, 1-story on the back, and a middle courtyard. Our original proposal was to build a 1-story addition in the courtyard area, which would house an elevator and 88 bathrooms. And we ended up foregoing this because of a lot of concerns about this 1-story addition. And so what we ended up doing is proposing an addition underneath the garden space instead of above it, and a lateral addition on the roof. I'm going to flip through photographs real quick. This is looking at Jones Street, obviously. The 2 townhouses on the sides are the ones that abut the back courtyard I was just mentioning. This is looking down. Please tell me if you need me to go slower. So these are the 2 townhouses. The back of the townhouses, they have little, what we call the dog legs, which face our little courtyard area. And then in the middle picture, you see the courtyard from above, going down onto it. The courtyard was dug up to 5 feet below grade before we stopped. And what we're proposing now is to continue that going down into the 5 feet below grade, recreate the garden at what was the ground level, and then add an addition on the rooftop to make up for the area that we lost in our previous application. On the right side is the mock-up, it's essentially the mock-up of the rooftop addition, which is set back from the street by about 31 feet and from the rear yard by about 30 feet, which leaves us about 750 square feet of space, which makes up for the new elevator shafts and the 88 bathrooms, which are being built inside the building now instead of being built outside the building. This is the elevation from the courtyard. What you're seeing at the very bottom is a little courtyard. So there'll remain an area that's outside in the courtyard area. And then the greenish area on the top is the new addition, which is going to be channel glass facing west, basically. And the rest is just restoring the brick and changing the steel windows to new steel windows, which are thermally broken and energy efficient. This is the existing plan. So this is the lowest level where you're seeing the courtyard at the bottom. I don't know if I was away from the point. Can I use a pointer? Is that no? Okay, so the very bottom of the plan is actually this little internal courtyard.
Pointer.
I can point it?
Yeah.
Actually,
there's a little cylindrical.
Oh, it's right here. Sorry. Okay, so this is actually a little courtyard area, which is the sort of 10 feet below grade. This area right here is the addition, the cellar, which will have the new roof garden. And then this is the upper level, the addition on the roof, which is basically the one that's set back in by 31 feet. An existing stair, which we're going to basically keep, and then building a new elevator shaft right next to it. And then this is the 30-foot rear setback. We are going to remove portion of the existing parapet on this facade because we need to bring columns down and the steel beam that's going around top of this wall to carry the load. So we're using that as an intention to basically have floor to ceiling glass, and I'll show you an internal perspective inside and I'll show you what that looks like. This is the section through it. And this is the mock-up that's there now, which obviously is not visible from the street at all. The side elevation and the rear elevation, the front elevation is essentially the same. This is all zinc cladding, and there's just a zinc clad door. So it basically is all zinc. This is the kind of a perspective from the garden space. These are just examples of channel glass and projects we've done and zinc cladding. And then this is the internal view, which is the full glass height, just to get a light into these Pottery Studios. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair Bland.
Are you underpinning the neighbors in the back?
No, we are not. That's one of the that was one of the big contentions. We've pulled away from the neighbors by about 1 foot 4 inch, 1 foot 4 inches. We're going to be doing tangent piles, and there'll be no underpinning at all.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, but
Yes, Commissioner
just to be
Chu.
clear, there was a single story addition in the back area and then excavation as well under for cellars.
So it is just from the ground level down is one. There's nothing at ground level up in the rear yard.
So maybe we should just clarify our regulatory history here. Right.
Well, I was just going to note that with this particular application, the only change is to reallocate the FAR from the courtyard area up to the rooftop.
They are keeping the excavation below that was.
Okay, so we had previously
The above
approved,
grade portion goes away, but the below grade courtyard.
so we
stays.
had, previously approved essentially what added up to 2 stories in the courtyard, 1 below grade and 1 above grade. And so they're back today to eliminate the above grade portion of it, continue to do the below grade portion of it, but keep a garden at the original level, grade level, and then take that floor area that we had previously approved in the courtyard and put it on the roof.
So there's no new engineering issues today. Anything that we would have done for enhanced engineering review would still stand. This is just a separate matter.
Okay, other questions? Okay, let's see if we have public testimony.
I think we have. Probably just want to.
So Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead.
On your perspective from the courtyard, I'm just curious about the that one. Is the new addition, is that glass? What is the material?
So the top section right here is all channel glass and a zinc cladding.
So that's channel glass.
So
on the
channel
top.
glass is
Okay, thank you.
that's basically channel glass right here. It's an insulated wall system. That's glass.
Thank you. It's a good idea. Thanks.
All right, okay. Any
The
other?
panel glass has straws in it for insulation.
It basically is 2 layers of glass that
Yeah.
fit into one another, and there's an insulation. There's a fiberglass insulation
Oh.
inside it.
Fiberglass.
Yep.
It's not the little
It's a
straws.
translucent fiberglass. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, let's move to public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there is not, I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through any remote participants. Okay, can we do the public testimony and then we'll come back to you? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have 1 hand raised in our attendees list, that being Chloe Gregoire from the Village Preservation. Chloe Gregoire, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation commends Greenwich House for listening to neighbors' feedback and determining how to best proceed with this proposal. Greenwich House Pottery is a valued neighborhood institution, and we're happy to see them continuing to offer their services to the community. While we are supportive of the project, we find it critical that LPC and DOB carefully review the engineering report and support of excavation drawings and monitor the work throughout construction to ensure that it is done safely and without damage to or negative impacts on neighboring properties. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval, and we also received letters from 3 individuals recommending approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you very much. So a lot of support, but please, I'd like to welcome you up to make any statement that you'd like to make at this time.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll be really quick. My name is Fabio Fernandez. I'm the director of Greenwich House Pottery, which is part of Greenwich House. Started as a settlement house back in 1902. Greenwich House owns 3 buildings in the village, 120 years of doing very good work for the community across adult centers, methadone treatment clinics, a music school, and the pottery. In those 120 years, there's been a ton of deferred maintenance, which is probably not a unique story to medium-sized nonprofits in New York City. The pottery serves 1,600 students between the ages of 5 and 97. No kidding. And our aim is to modernize and improve accessibility. As Jill noted, the neighbors are on board with this reworking of our project. And additionally, we have 300 signatures of support from various New Yorkers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So,
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second?
second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And as we've heard, this is a proposal for a rooftop addition that would not be visible from a public thoroughfare. It's clad in steel with channel glass, which in some ways kind of evokes a studio window, which is for this use that's so fitting in the historic district. So we'll begin our discussion. The excavation, as Corey said, is the enhanced engineering review of the excavation was part of the initial approval, and there's no change to that. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Well, from what I can see from the proposal, the rooftop is not really that visible from the street.
Not visible at all.
I think this is appropriate. I actually like the channel glass. I think it's a nice, channel glazing was an industrial glass for warehouses and such. So this is not an inappropriate use of it where they had warehouse windows there before.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Master.
I agree. And it even sounds as if the applicant has responded to the community by, removing that layer of addition that was on the ground floor, creating open space. So I commend the applicant. I can find this appropriate.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
I wrote, I carefully thought through a design solution revolving around a courtyard, a negative space, and carving out a new space in the basement. I thought it was brilliantly done. And I think the channel glass would be truly beautiful there. Lovely. Yes.
Great.
Proposal.
Thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree. I think this is a great solution to move the mass from the courtyard up onto the roof. I think it's a good solution and better than the previous application. So I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree with others' comments. I think it's great they're creating this courtyard again and, really having, it's a fine design. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree. I think it's appropriate. My brother's mother-in-law is a regular weekly attendee at this place. I have numerous pieces of pottery that have started here littering my house. I've been in the doghouse for many years as she keeps on asking me, what the hell is going on with the renovation? And so now I can tell her that it's all sorted out.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree in that, creating accessibility, particularly for something as public as your operation, is really important, and it's tricky because you can lose space. And I think this is a very elegant proposal and appropriate.
Commissioner Chen.
Agree on the comment is this is so well done on so many levels. Congratulations.
Vice Chair Bland,
I'll keep it going. Very appropriate, wonderful project.
and Commissioner Lutfi.
For lending me your mic. So I just want to say, think this is an amazing project. And it's not surprising because I think that this is an amazing organization. It's been around since like 1902. And, you know, as you said, it was founded to help settle immigrants that were coming to this country for a variety of reasons. But over the years, the organization has evolved in so many interesting ways and taken on so many new missions as it has, because it's been outward looking. It's not an inward looking organization. It's been outward looking at what's going on in the city and in the community that it's in, and has looked to ways to be of service and reach out and help meet communities' needs. And now I think, as you know, in a way, this solution is like a solution that is simpatico with who you are as an organization. It looked at what your needs are, and in an innovative way came up with a solution that I think is beautiful, uses very interesting materials, is going to meet the requirements of your program. And the thing that's, I think, especially interesting is that, you know, the outside of the building, you have 3 buildings, is retains the history, and then this new outside in the back is about the present and the future, and looking to how you can serve now. So I think it's a wonderful project. I think the design is great, and I can approve it.
All right, that's great. So we have a consensus. Commissioner Chu, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the case of LPC 23-090992 16 Jones Street, Greenwich Village Historic District Extension number 2, a colonial revival style house designed by Delano and Aldrich and built in 1929 with alterations in 1930. Application is to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 19-29116, issued on September 14th, 2018, to construct an addition. Let's see, I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of Greenwich Village Historic District Extension number 2. Also note that the building is part of the Greenwich House Settlement Complex, along with the main building at 29 Barrow Street, built in 1916-17, that the building evolved from use as a training school for woodworking and stone carving for the local immigrant population, that it was enlarged by a rear addition in 1930, consisting of a foundry, a wood carving studio, and that it was converted to pottery studios for the Greenwich House Pottery in 1948. I recommend approval, finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the building is part of the Greenwich House Settlement Complex, which has experienced several building expansion campaigns. Therefore, the work will be in keeping with the historic evolution and continued adaptive reuse of the site. That removing the above ground portion of the rear yard addition will leave the existing grade in the courtyard unchanged and will balance the cumulative effect or amount of additions in consideration of the proposed rooftop addition. That the proposed rooftop addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfare and will be set back from the front and rear facades of the building, the main building, and its proposed massing and scale will help it to remain subservient to the main building. That the design of the rooftop addition featuring metal cladding, steel windows, channel glass infill will relate to the character and materiality of the studio windows and skylights in the complex, and that the work will not detract from special architectural or historic character of the building, the streetscape, or the historic district.
Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion? Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 11 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's approved. Thank you very much. And we'll move to the next two items.
Right, the next two items pertain to the same project and are being presented together. So I'll read both of those items in now. First is public hearing item number 6, LPC 24-04321, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 822, Lot 7507, 160 Fifth Avenue in the Ladies Mile Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style office store and loft building designed by Robert Henderson Robertson and built in 1891 to 92. The application is to construct a rooftop addition, alter the facade, and install a sky bridge and related light fixtures. And public hearing item number 7, LPC 24-04320, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 823, Lot 7506, 162 Fifth Avenue in the Ladies Mile Historic District. This is a Beaux-Arts-style store and loft building designed by Buckman and Fox and built in 1903. The application is to alter the facade and install a sky bridge and related light fixtures.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cass Stackler, Higgins Grace Barton Partners. Nice to see you all. I think it's fitting that we're following Greenwich House with this other application, a series of applications that we're eager to share with you. As I mentioned, this is an application that this team has been working on for quite some time, and we're eager to share this important project for an entity that's doing amazing work in Ladies Mile, in the Ladies Mile Historic District. It's a project that represents what will be a significant advancement for the Simons Foundation, for which you'll hear a bit more about, and the Flatiron Institute, two entities doing work in the historic district. I'll be making the presentation, but you'll also hear from Ewan Robertson here, who is the COO of the Simons Foundation, who will speak about the foundation's long-term commitment to the buildings and to the district, and talk a bit about its mission, the challenges that it faces, and the work that will be the collaboration that will be fostered by this proposed work, both in terms of the work in the science that it supports, but also in terms of the public programming and the public engagement. As discussed, there are two components to this application. An addition on the roof of 160 Fifth Avenue. That addition is an as-of-right addition, and a connecting bridge between 160 and 162 across 21st Street. These two elements are programmatically connected, applied for separately, but presented together. As I mentioned, the addition is as-of-right. The bridge is going to require revocable consent through DOT, and the process will require referral to the Department of City Planning. So we will be going through ULURP for that component of the project. As a project, like projects of this complexity, there involves an extensive team, a great amount of collaboration and guidance from a team of professionals. So Ewan and I will be making the presentation, but Gary Charnoff from Kramer Levin and Nick Leahy from Perkins Eastman and Alex Ebliero from TPG Architecture are all here to answer any questions that you may have as we begin and continue our discussions. As I mentioned, the buildings are located in the Ladies Mile Historic District, 160 and 162 Fifth Avenue, on the west side, the northwest and southwest corners of the intersection of 21st. 160, a bit larger, 92 feet of frontage on Fifth Avenue and about 140 feet, 5 feet deep into the block. 162, a bit narrower, 63 feet of frontage on Fifth Avenue and about 145 deep into the block. The two buildings shown here, they're on the left, 160 Fifth Avenue occupied by the Simons Institute, and 162 Fifth Avenue on the right, its sister organization, the Flatiron Institute, straddling West 21st Street. On the left, 160, it's a 9-story store and loft building designed by R.H. Robertson, completed in 1892 in a sort of restrained neo-Renaissance style. Significant to note that historically this building was in red brick and sandstone, but has been parged and painted and has been in this appearance for perhaps as many as 50 years. I'll also just point out there is new construction, I think, from around 2000, directly adjacent in the block, a commission approved new building to the west. And then looking at 162 Fifth Avenue, an 11-story store and loft building in a Beaux-Arts style, a bit more exuberant, more figurative. I'll also point out that there's a building to its west that was constructed perhaps in the last 10 years under commission approval. The foundation occupies all of the upper floors, except with the exception, obviously, of the ground floor, which are used for commercial uses. And as well, the basement is largely occupied by commercial space associated with a tenancy. Ewan?
Well, good afternoon, Chair Carroll, Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration today. I'm Ewan Robertson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Simons Foundation. And before we dive into the meat of the presentation, I just wanted to take a few minutes to give you a flavor of what the foundation is and what we do and how we use these beautiful buildings, because I think that will provide some context and some behind why we want to do this project. The Simons Foundation is a private philanthropic foundation. We were actually set up about 30 years ago. We're about to celebrate our 30th anniversary. We've been in the Flatiron District for about 20 of those 30 years. And we've been through a growth period, especially in the last 8 to 10 years. Our mission, as you see there on the slide, is basically we're all about science. We are created to advance the frontiers of science, particularly mathematical and computational science. And we do that in 3 ways. First, we're a major grant maker. We give out around $350 million a year in grants. A lot of those grants are going to entities in the New York City and New York region, so Columbia, NYU, Rockefeller University, to scientists there. But we also give out funding nationally and internationally. As part of those programs, we are the largest private funder in the US of research into autism. And we run a very large and long-standing clinical study where we've enrolled about 50,000 people, so individuals with autism and their families. And we're working with them to better understand the causes of autism and hopefully lead to some treatments for those who want it. About 8 years ago, we decided to add this second piece to our mission, which was really to do science ourselves. So we created an in-house research institute, which we named after the district that we're located in, and that is the Flatiron Institute. And again, similar to what we do in our grant making, that's all computational science. So astrophysics, quantum physics, computational biology. Don't ask me to explain, I'm not a scientist, what these things actually are. But we have about 250 scientists in our building doing this work with chalkboards, with whiteboards, and with supercomputers. We are not a pedagogical or degree granting institution, but we do have a big postdoc program. So people, after they finish their PhDs, come and work with us in the Institute. And then the third piece of our mission, which is very important, is education and outreach, which is where we're trying to engage the public, people who are not scientists, people who maybe even don't think that they're interested in science, and we're trying to engage them in the joy of science and mathematics. And we do that in a number of ways. We do grant making to typically small not-for-profits who are doing scientific engagement. We run lecture series for the public. We have a film production company which produces science documentaries. We have a couple of online publications and much more I don't have time to go into. So that hopefully gives you a bit of a flavor of who we are and what we do. At the heart of all 3 of those activities, so grant making, our in-house science, and our education and outreach, is a lot of convening. We bring thousands of people to our buildings every year, hundreds of events, various different formats, anything from a short 1 to 2 hour lecture through to a very deep 2.5, 3-day scientific workshop where we're bringing 150, 160 scientists from all around the world, and they're collaborating together on the science. And so our buildings are very, very lively. And getting very, very full, and our event and collaboration spaces really are starting to reach their maximum capacity, which is a constraint on our ability to do further work. So this really just gives you a kind of glance into these buildings in terms of what is where. Most of the 162 side of the street is Flatiron Institute. So you'll see those groups there: astrophysics, biology, quantum physics, mathematics. We actually added a fifth group recently to the Flatiron Center with neuroscience across the street at 160. You'll see our convening spaces, top and bottom of the building. And there's a lot of interaction that goes on, right? A lot of physical interaction and back and forth between the two sides of the building, because we really are one organization. And that's why we've said we're trying to build a campus, an urban campus in the Flatiron district here in Manhattan. And so what we would like to do and what the application involves is, number one, an expansion of our existing convening space through the addition of a rooftop convening center, which can hold about 150 people in auditorium format on the roof of the 160 building, connected by a sky bridge to an existing convening space that we have at 162 Fifth. Those two spaces to be used in conjunction. So imagine the auditorium set up for a plenary discussion. I'm sure you've been to these kind of conferences yourselves. You're seated in auditorium format. There's a talk, there's a lecture, and then the announcement is, okay, we're now going to go and break out into groups of 25 or 30 people for some workshop discussions. People flow across the sky bridge and they use the convening space on the other side in the other building for those breakout groups and back and forth throughout the event program. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor of who we are and some context for the project.
Thank you. And so this illustration obviously provides a visual of these two components and the sort of interconnected nature of them. So the addition of the convening space on the roof of 160 and the connecting bridge passing through the parapet at 160 to the top floor, the 11th floor of 162. As Ewan said, these two components are inextricably linked to one another in terms of this additional programming that the foundation will be able to do. So I'm going to address the addition first. On the left is an aerial sort of perspective view of the roof and the features that are there today. There is elevator access through this bulkhead and active space on the roof for the users of the building to occupy and meet and work at the roof. And on the right is the addition, which is a large one-story enclosure, sort of this shed-like form, finished in a standing seam metal, foldable doors, north-facing, an enlarged elevator bulkhead to get people to this upper level with a meeting room and then reassembled mechanical equipment and then cooling towers, water towers set up on this upper roof. As you'll see in the visibility studies, almost all of this work is outside of the sight lines. There's just a very small portion here at this edge. The entire form and massing has been really shaped by the sight lines, and we also take advantage of a very tall parapet which blocks most of the views. Some photographs of the existing roof just to see how the space is used currently. And you can also get a sense of the scale of that parapet wall, which is about 10 feet. This parapet has been reconstructed. There was a balustrade historically above it that has been removed, and then other alterations to that perimeter. An existing plan, so this is a roof plan here of 160 and then the 11th floor at 162, and you can see the convening space that exists here on that floor, and then the layout of the existing roof at 160. And then the proposed roof plan and 11th floor plan. This is the enclosure housing holding about 150 people. There's a elevator vestibule, back of house spaces here with meeting rooms just above, and then the connecting bridge, an enclosed vestibule here, and then our connecting bridge across 21st Street to the 11th floor of 162 Fifth. The bridge itself is set back, just as reference, 100 feet from the corner. The addition, 20 feet from Fifth Avenue, 25 feet from 21st Street. And then an upper roof plan of the addition here. Again, sort of standing seam roof, skylight, solar panels facing south here on the southern portion, and here water tanks and mechanicals. And again, you get a sense of the setbacks around the perimeter of 20 and 25 feet, Fifth Avenue and 21st Street, respectively. some line drawings illustrating the form of the addition. The primary portion obviously is the enclosed sort of shed-like structure, sort of taking its cues from other utilitarian forms on rooftops in this district and throughout the city. A section showing the main open space here and here, and then the back of house spaces and meeting spaces that are nestled in around that primary volume. And then a view, aerial view, just indicating materiality, a painted gray panel system with a standing seam roof, wood decking, concrete pavers, metal panel system on the mass on the west side, and then the simple terracotta panel on the north facing side of this enclosure where the bulkhead is and the meeting rooms are. Solar panels located here in the backside of this element. As I mentioned, the form of it really has been shaped by the sight lines, and the component parts are really sort of assembled as a collection of sort of typical rooftop features that one might see in the district. These are a bit hard to see, so we've added zoomed in photos of our mock-up. So there is a slight amount of visibility from here. This is, hundreds of feet away in Madison Square Park. This is all one can see of the addition from, with a zoom lens from the distance. I think it's sort of interesting seeing it in the context of the pyramidal roof at 156 Fifth Avenue, the Presbyterian building. And it's also sort of similar to the slope of stair bulkheads and skylights that one might see. A little bit closer now on 23rd Street. Again, this is the area where the addition will be. Back in here, most of it is masked by the neighboring building at 162 where the Flatiron Institute is. And you can see just a piece of it shown here. From the east, again, you can see a bit from the east side of Fifth Avenue, again, sort of reading like a stair bulkhead or skylight form, not unusual for the district. And then one other vantage point closer to Broadway, again, the mock-up and then the rendered view here. So these images are meant to illustrate the sort of minimal nature of the visibility. These are consistent with the level of visibility for other rooftop additions that the commission has seen in this district. We have examples in our appendix. I'm not going to take the time to go through that, but in terms of obviously, the programming is really sort of essential to the foundation, but in terms of the architecture and the form derived from rooftop features and the visibility, quite modest in the scale of other additions that have been approved in this district. Turning now to the connecting bridge. So this is a proposed Fifth Avenue elevation with the addition here at 160, a small addition that was approved back in 2018 as part of the Flatiron Institute's rehabilitation of 162 Fifth Avenue, but now an elevation showing sort of the full complement of the scope. And I think, it's important sort of at this scale to sort of talk a little bit about the appropriateness and the location of this bridge. Obviously, it's located at this elevation in large part to connect to the existing convening space at the top of 162, but also the proposed space at 160. But there are other reasons to connect at this level. Obviously, this elevation takes the skybridge largely out of your direct line of sight when you're walking down the street. I walked down Fifth Avenue a few nights ago, and you really have to look up to see the cornice. People are actually not doing that, so you really actually have to stop and look up to see it. It's also sort of a preferred height for the other agencies that we're working with, particularly Department of City Planning. But I think there are some others very specific purposes and reasons for its location relative to these buildings. It results in a very modest 4-inch slope. The impacts to both the fabric at the roof and also the architectural composition are minimized. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but are minimized by this location. And I think as you'll see in other materials we'll share, this location is actually quite typical for historic sky bridges in the city. So a few renderings. This is a view obviously looking west from 21st Street, just east of Fifth Avenue. The bridge, as I mentioned, is about 100 feet into the block. The underside of the deck is 135 feet from the street. It is simultaneously simple and incredibly structurally complex. It is really just two components. It is a carbon fiber deck and structurally glazed perimeter. So it's really four pieces, and we'll talk more about that. It's four pieces, the deck, and four 63-foot long triple laminated pieces of glass. It represents really the most advanced building technologies that exist today. And in many ways, this sort of advanced technology and advanced design is derived in part, relates to the advanced work that's happening directly inside these buildings. There are structural conditions also that would privilege this location, which I'll talk more a bit about in just a moment. This is the view sort of southwest, now looking at the interaction of the building, of the bridge with 160 Fifth Avenue. It very purposely, as I said, connects at that level to intersect with the new convenience space. It does impact the cornice. But as we'll talk about in a bit, you'll understand that the integrity up at the top of this building is actually such that much of this fabric is non-historic. And there are elements, as I mentioned, that balustrade that have already been altered and lost over time. It's also, I think, worth noting, and I'll point this out later, is that there are, particularly in this district, intersections in cornices where you do have this condition where there are cuts in cornices associated with other sort of building circulation systems. This view now looking to the north at 162 and seeing where the bridge intersects at that top floor of the building. Another sort of consideration in terms of the location of the bridge, not doing it lower down, as Ewan said, the programming that is happening inside these buildings, these are very actively used buildings, very fully occupied. There are offices, classrooms, computer infrastructure that is embedded in these buildings, and sort of intersecting those elements presents a significant challenge for the ongoing work of the foundation. We've looked at some long views, of course. The bridge, because it is across 21st Street, it would be visible when you are looking due east, due west. This is a view from Park Avenue over 1,200 feet away. Difficult to make out, but as a glass structure, it's sort of shown here. And similarly, from the west, a view from 6th Avenue, 900 feet away, you can see it here. Obviously, the use of glass allows this to be a visually light intervention and not impacting visually the facades around it and the long views up and down the street. And then this one last view, again, you can see it down here, about 1,800 feet away on 7th Avenue from some distance. So before continuing on with the details of the bridge, I think it's important to sort of talk a little bit about appropriateness and specifically glass architecture. And it's the way the commission has supported and approved contemporary glass interventions in historic districts over many years. These are just three examples. There are certainly many more. 144 Spring Street, a new building that was approved in Soho about 10 years ago, obviously a striking sort of contemporary glass structure with facades on Spring Street and Worcester. The Rose Center for Earth and Science and the north side of the Museum of Natural History campus. That is both an individual landmark but also within the Upper West Side Historic District. And then a more recent approval for this covered portico on the south side of Trinity Church. I think these all illustrate how, particularly even with Spring Street and the museum, how the commission has seen sort of the appropriateness of even these very contemporary glass structures in masonry contexts. Obviously, on Spring Street, the building is framed by masonry building, an altered federal row house, and this warehouse or loft building on the southeast corner of that intersection. Similarly, at the museum, a complex of masonry structures where this very advanced scientific-oriented intervention was approved. And then I think sort of more on a smaller scale, obviously, this glass and metal portico supporting the sort of programming and function that goes on in the church. And these are really meant to illustrate that appropriateness can be can foster an exact relationship to the underlying historic context. It can be filled with contrasts and even advanced design, but still at the same time serve as still maintain that relationship with its underlying historic context. I think it's also probably worth just talking briefly about precedent while we're here. Because obviously that is something, as we presented this project to the community board, to others, it's a question. And I think, I think we recognize that our proposal certainly doesn't necessarily pave the way for other applications and approvals. As you all know, every application is unique. Every building is unique, its age, its style, its condition, its architectural expression, and then each proposal itself is unique. So you always have the opportunity to vote yes or vote no. One approval does not guarantee another approval. And I think perhaps related to the side is that the way, particularly in Soho, and even at the museum, since 144 Spring Street was approved, there have been, I think, as many as 5 new buildings approved. None of them have followed this sort of design, this materiality. They've almost all been masonry buildings. And similarly at the museum, obviously the Gilder Center, celebrated new piece of architecture, took on a completely different approach, a design approach to scientific infrastructure in a way that is related to what is happening on the inside, but obviously very different than the Rose Center. So with that, I'll continue on with our presentation and talk a bit about structure, because I think one of the things that's really interesting about the proposed design for the bridges is structurally how advanced it is. And this collection of 4 New York City landmarks sort of illustrating this evolution, perhaps within 100 years of advancements in technology and how the materiality of them sort of inform their design. So from the left, St. John the Divine, St. Patrick's, a bit older, but with a sort of more advanced, historically advanced Viking sculpture, the Botanical Gardens up in the Bronx with this cast iron frame and integrated glass panels, and then Saarland's TWA terminal. So this idea that sort of this increasing drive to lightness, visual lightness, daylighting, and form informs how we've approached our proposal. And I think what's also interesting, turning back to the historic district itself, I think it's important to note that the designation report speaks about building technology and how this historic district really embraces this sort of spread of building technologies. And I'll just read from the designation report. But the district is defined by a variety of buildings reflecting the changing nature of retailing, commerce, and manufacturing, as well as advances in building technology, and that these buildings reveal a range of stylistic, structural, and technological solutions to the problems of the appropriate building type for the purpose of business and commerce. And these images on the left, across the top, just illustrate the sort of progression from load-bearing masonry, the Mortimer building at 22nd and Broadway, what was used, the cast iron fronted building where Lord and Taylor was, and then of course the Flatiron building with its striking steel frame skeleton. The photo on the lower left illustrates a view looking east on 23rd Street, where you have this whole sort of spectrum of load-bearing masonry row houses, Stern Brothers department store with its cast iron facade, and then the iconic Flatiron building directly behind that. That vista remains today, and I think is important sort of to acknowledge how building technologies are represented in this district. I think other districts, particularly Soho, get more attention for that, but I think the fact that it is written into the designation report is quite significant. So just turning back to the buildings and the framework for the Flatiron, the steel frame construction, the advanced quality of that, and then looking at 160 and 162. 160 with a sort of more simplified classical expression, was neo-Renaissance expression, more of a sort of a trabeated detailing, and the more exuberant Beaux-Arts detailing at 162, obviously with steel embedded, but with a masonry cladding across the front. And thinking about that progression and how we fit into that. So the load-bearing masonry of these sort of simple, smaller scale row house structures on the left, the clad curtain wall and steel moment frame, and then our system, this integrated structure, as I mentioned, 4 component parts, the carbon fiber deck, and then 3 pieces of glass. This sort of tubular form gives its rigidity. The form is the structure is the form. And thinking about how we got to this place. So the sort of base form would be something done perhaps in a steel beam where you have a lot of redundancy. You've got a beam that would probably just span 63 feet, be 3 or 4 feet deep, and then you'd have cladding, and it would be a much heavier, visually and physically heavier structure. But instead, sort of using computational analysis and using sort of advanced technologies, looking at the way that one can use materials in an economic way to reduce the amount of material actually necessary. So this diagram in the middle illustrates sort of this analysis where the structure is required, where the most important elements of structure are in red, and then the blue elements are less significant. So that has then informed this optimized shape, which is the underside of this deck, this carbon fiber deck, which puts the structure where it's needed. So it's no heavier, no thicker, no more massive than it absolutely has to be. And so in many ways, as building technologies evolve, we can use computational analysis to actually form and inform the structure of this bridge itself. As I said, it's a very simple but complex element, a carbon fiber deck woven together. It is a sort of monolithic carbon fiber deck, and then 3 pieces of triple laminated glass, 2 sides and a roof. Simple stainless steel fittings, and then simple stainless steel trim to manage water across the top. As I said, it's simultaneously both simple and complex. And then in terms of some of the line drawings to illustrate sort of how this works, a section in the upper left to illustrate the overall form of it. It's about 8.5 feet, 8 foot 4 inches in width. And then depending on the thickness of the deck, which varies from end to end, it is from about 9 feet to about 9 feet 9 in height and 63 feet long. I'll point out this section just to illustrate sort of how precise and thoughtful this is all been assembled. So this is the deck. Embedded in the deck are all the building systems. So the lighting to illuminate the deck, all the HVAC systems, those are all integrated below the walking surface and in the web of the deck itself. And then this is an underside, a sort of an RCP for the bridge deck itself, and then an elevation. And you can see that it's sort of slightly asymmetrical. It's purposely asymmetrical because of the way the systems are fed from 160. It doesn't carry all the way through. It's a loop from 165th back into 160. So this is the end at 165th Avenue, and then this is the end at 162. At its greatest thickness, it's 15 inches in depth. It goes down to about 7 inches where it meets 160, and it goes to 2 inches where it meets 162. It is no bigger than it needs to be, and it really reveals, in its form, it reveals the underlying technology used to construct it itself. Sky bridges are a factor. They're a feature of the of our urban landscape. That when one stops to look for them, one sees them really in many districts throughout New York. So on the left, 2 of the bridges that exist today in what was the Nabisco complex. The one on the upper left is across 15th Street, lower left across 10th Avenue with a High Line, and then this pedestrian bridge that was constructed in the 1930s to bring people back and forth across the 2 buildings that were part of the Nabisco complex. Down on Staples Street, the New York Hospital Bridge from 1907. This is an older bridge at MetLife. There have been at least 2 bridges connecting the complex at the Metropolitan Life complex on the east side of the park. And then this bridge here at the Trinity Building, US Realty Buildings. This bridge, obviously at the top of the building, not unlike where we are proposing our bridge. This bridge too was added after the fact. So it was added after these buildings were constructed, which I think is an interesting thing, and we see in other examples as well. So on the left, the Gimbels Bridge across 32nd Street. This is a view looking north on the north side of the street, and then a view looking south. One thing that you also see, and particularly the bridge across 15th Street at the Nabisco collection, is this sort of ad hoc nature, particularly where bridges were added to buildings that already existed. So you see bridges that sort of span pier lines and don't quite hit openings. That's not an unusual feature for bridges. And I think something that the technology behind our bridge allows us to make an incredibly precise connection and to minimize these sort of ad hoc conditions. I'll also just point out the Gimbels Bridge, which interacts and intersects up at the top of the building, both at the parapet and the top floor. So you have this sort of overlap of that upper parapet. We think that our detailing is a little bit more refined than this, but you can see that these bridges serve multiple functions. That they were done in different materials. They were done in different styles, different than what the buildings that they connected to were finished in, and also at different elevations. So there's a great variety of historic bridges throughout the city. 2 examples of bridges that are no longer in place. This is the second bridge, at least in the MetLife campus, and then this connecting bridge that connected 200 to 204 Fifth Avenue, which was this north base really is the side of the northern edge of the Ladies Mile Historic District. Obviously, contemporary bridges, the photo on the right at the Lincoln Center complex completed about 10 years ago, and then other bridging done for educational and science purposes up at Columbia Presbyterian uptown and Hunter College in the Upper East Side Historic District. The Ladies Mile Historic District, I think it's important to note, is made up of many buildings that were occupied and built by commercial enterprises and publishing entities that actually expanded over time due to their commercial success, whether it was department stores like B. Altman's or Stern Brothers or publishing outfits like the Methodist Book Concern at 155th Avenue. Buildings in Ladies Mile, perhaps unlike any other district, have successions of additions both laterally and vertically that one sees very clearly across the streetscape. And what's interesting is some of those, the department stores like Lord and Taylor and Arnold Constable, who ended up occupying full blocks, the way they actually dealt with the expansion of their holdings was to actually build bridges. They built sky bridges within the blocks of their compounds, of their campuses. And the designation report, the Ladies Mile Historic District designation report, speaks very specifically about these two examples. But it's interesting there, it references even other examples. 155th Avenue had a sky bridge that connected different component parts of that complex, as well as at least one or two other references. So there's something particular about this historic district, both in terms of the sort of commercial success of the buildings and enterprises that they occupied, and then the way that the buildings developed over time, the use of bridging to connect disparate parts of the campus. So turning now back to the bridge itself. This is a proposed elevation at 165th Avenue, and you can see the bridge here up at the upper portion of the elevation, and then the proposed convening space up on the roof. I think it's important to sort of see this in the scale of the overall elevation, not just in terms of scale, but composition. I think it's important to note that the bridge in the removal of what is actually a fiberglass cornice that was constructed about 10 or 15 years ago is only constituting a removal of about 5% of that overall cornice. And in terms of sort of fabric, just for this 21st Street elevation, it's 0.5% of the historic fabric of this elevation that's being removed as part of this intervention. And flipping around on the north side of the street of 162 Fifth Avenue now, and seeing where the intervention is here, the percentages are about the same. We're really impacting about 0.5% of the fabric across this elevation. Looking at some of the details of the building itself, now 165th Avenue, so you can see the organization of these upper floors with this sort of monumental two-story colonnade. As I mentioned, this cornice is actually a fiberglass cornice that was installed 10 or 15 years ago. You can see the backside of the parapet. It is all sort of painted in parged brick and sandstone. The building historically was red brick and sandstone, and there was historically a balustrade above it. So the integrity of the top of this building has been altered significantly over time. And then flipping around to the 162 side, the intervention, the addition will be through here. Much of this cornice here that has to be removed for the bridge installation is actually replacement material. And we've documented that through previous filings through the Commission's own archives. Again, existing conditions at 160 showing the various component parts, the area of removals that'll be necessary to sort of connect to the structure at the roof, and then a proposed view of the way the bridge intersects with the cornice, the return. We're proposing to sort of return the cornice in a simplified manner, and then a section through the bridge here. You can see the systems running through the underside closer to 160 as they come from the building off that roof into the bridge structure. And then a plan here where it connects, and then this interior vestibule behind the parapet wall. Very simple bead blasted steel framing within the portal, and obviously a very simple and elegant design solution. As I mentioned, in the district itself, there are examples of cut cornices, particularly for circulation related purposes. So often where fire escapes were inserted. There are cuts in cornices. You see it on Fifth Avenue in a number of locations, 140, 133, and even historically here, this image of the Mortimer building that I shared before, this cut we think is interesting at the cornice right at the corner of Broadway and or Fifth Avenue and 22nd Street. It occurs obviously in other districts as well, but I think what we're proposing is not unseen elsewhere in the historic district. And then an existing and proposed section at 160. And I think a couple of things that are important to point out here, particularly this moment right here. So one of the benefits of connecting at the roof at this elevation is that in order to support the bridge, all we really need to do is introduce new structure onto the roof. We don't have to open up large areas of the historic facade on the lower floors to get to the underlying structure. So this bridge at 160 Fifth Avenue is really just sort of sitting and resting on a new frame structure at the roof level. And you can see that connection there. I'll also point out that we're proposing two small light fixtures or two pairs of light fixtures on either side just to illuminate the underside of the bridge. These fixtures are fit with visors or snoots to target the light so it doesn't spill and impact any of the adjacent residential buildings to the west. It'll be very focused on the underside of the bridge. And then flipping around to 162 Fifth Avenue. So again, this red line illustrates the areas that need to be removed as part of this installation. Much of it, particularly up at the upper portion, is all replacement material. And these elements, those that are not going back, will be removed carefully, salvaged, and stored inside, particularly this pier and some of the sill components here where the bridge is coming in and connecting. So a proposed view. The finishes and materials here are different than they are over at 160. A metal frame painted with spandrel glass where the window exists, and you can see the interaction of the building just below the cornice line. And then a proposed section and an existing section at 162. Here we are introducing new structure again at the roof level. On 162, the bridge is actually being suspended from this beam, whereas at 160, it's actually being supported by the beam. And there are different structural reasons that we're doing that. But what the big picture is that it requires far less intervention into historic fabric on either side of the street. And then a bit on materiality on 160 and 162, you can see on the left, some bead blasted and brushed stainless steel elements. The fittings will be brushed stainless, and then the underside of the deck will be a sort of an off-white painted carbon fiber. On the 162 side, the metal trim will be in a dark bronze color, and then the low iron glass, and then the replacement elements here that will be removed in order to get to the underlying structure will be in GFRP. But as I mentioned, all the elements that are being removed are going to be salvaged, and all the historic elements that are being removed will be salvaged and stored on site. So just a few concluding remarks, and then we're happy to take any questions. I think it's important to sort of recognize that there's sort of a unique set of circumstances that occur here, both in terms of the work that's being done, the ownership and occupancy of the building, and I think also significantly the integrity of materials on either side of the street, both at the tops of both of these buildings. I think it's important to note that the feature itself, this connecting bridge, is part of this historic continuum. We see bridges throughout the city. They are components of historic districts to the north and south of us. They may not have been favored by the city in years past, in part because I think there was a concern that they took people off the street. And I think in this instance, actually, this bridge is actually going to allow for more people to come to the building, to actually use these buildings in a greater degree for enhanced programming, both in terms of scientific work, but even public programming. Functionally, these have been, as we saw in the historic district, ways to connect complexes of buildings in the district, and we're doing the same thing here. In terms of its location on the building, it is situated 135 feet above the street. It is, out of the sight lines when you are close to the building. It is a sort of preference of the city planning department to have it high and away from view corridors. It does not, in its location, really impact with the architectural composition of these elevations, nor does it significantly impact historic fabric across the building. And I've provided percentages of what those impacts are, which are really quite modest. And then technologically, I think it's important to note that this bridge builds on and embraces the tradition of advanced building technologies that are really a key part of the historic district in which the bridge and the project is located. And then in simplicity of the design itself, simultaneously engineering a very complex engineering form, but in its form and its glass and carbon fiber materiality, quite simple in its appearance. And finally, this collective aerial view showing both elements, two features that we believe will facilitate collaboration for the Simons Foundation. It'll secure the foundation's place in this important historic district and will enhance its mission and its ability to engage with the scientific community and the public, both vital for the growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions at this time? Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I think I probably know the answer to this one, but I assume you also looked at the possibility of having the bridge descend from 162 toward 160, so as to avoid penetrating that 11th floor, but that just isn't practical. Could you just, briefly discuss that?
Sure. So we looked at a lot of different permutations. We even looked at going under the street. And, I'll address that first, which isn't the question, but I think it's worth noting. There are street utilities in the street, sewer, water, electric. The ground floor, we have a slide in the appendix that illustrates how the basements are laid out, but most of that space is commercial space that the foundation doesn't occupy, and the balance is building infrastructure. There's really no room, and the elevatoring really doesn't support this many people going up and down. But I think to your question about other locations on the building, I think what we've looked at is the impacts that would be required to get to the underlying structure are very significant in order to connect at different floors. And so by connecting at the roof, we're able to, as I illustrated in those sections, we're able to introduce new steel and new framing at the roof level, so suspending and supporting the bridge. So I think that's a large part of it. It also obviously programmatically connects to where the people will be in the buildings. And the balance of these buildings are these are fully occupied operational buildings with significant computer infrastructure, et cetera. So for us, this is very much the right place to do it. I think it's also, in terms of the impacts to the fabric at the top of these buildings maintain a fairly high degree of integrity, particularly 162, which is exposed masonry. 160 has been coated and things have been altered. So where we are attaching to these buildings, that's where the interventions have already happened. It's the least impact to actually original historic fabric. So there's sort of a series of reasons and considerations that we've looked at to get to this elevation.
Can I add to that question?
Yeah, Commissioner Chu, followed by Commissioner Gibbs.
So related to Commissioner Chapin's question, what about above? Did you look at higher than the existing cornice on 160?
Higher than the existing cornice? I don't know, Nick, do you want to?
Like the Trinity building example. Roof to roof above the existing cornice.
Nick, come on up and here, let me
Yes. I'm Nick Leahy with Eastman Architects, principal in charge of the bridge. So that would require us raising the addition, which was TPG's above the FAR. So we'd have to ask for more FAR to go up and over. So what we need to do is, the space works with the FAR that's required. Also the sightlines are so and over corners, but also connect it to, we have to go up, increase FAR, increase the size of the addition on 160, and also create a connection across to the 62. There's an existing mechanical system, so it's complicated.
Oh, FAR can be reallocated, so it's really about how you use your FAR. It's more of a zoning issue if there's a height restriction and sightline. But
I guess also, if you had to raise the addition, you'd have a more visible addition on the
There were multiple complexities.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
So two questions. First, how do you clean the glass on the bridge?
So
we looked into that, and in the appendix is how you suggest doing it. You can actually do it from the street using a lift. We anticipate that some of the roofs would need to be cleaned. There's a high performance materials as one reason why we use them, so there's minimum of jointing opportunities for doing it. And strong with a lift. So you can. From the other, just the foundation own the two buildings, where they.
Hello. Yeah, we own 165th Avenue. We have a 50-year lease for 162 that we are 8 years into. So we have another 42 years left to run. We're optimistic that we will be renewing that lease, but it won't be in my lifetime. We're very fortunate to be a foundation that is actually created and endowed to be around in perpetuity. So this is our home, and we built it out to be our long-term home, and we don't plan on moving anywhere.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Master.
I'm a little curious as to the capacity, how many people you can have on the bridge at one time?
I'll answer that. If you're planned back to whatever. The way it's designed for standing water, which is £100 per square foot, so it's perfectly safe.
All right, any other questions? All right, and I think it was very helpful also to see the sort of the program at each of the floors. So this is an existing functioning building. It's not like there's an opportunity to change all the equipment on the other floors as well. All right, let's move to public testimony. We may have other questions after that. So I have one person who's signed up in person, Carlo Casa. Okay, so is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak on this item? Right, noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Kala, who will take us through the remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a number of signups for this item. So first, we will be hearing from Andrea Goldwyn from New York Landmarks Conservancy. Andrea Goldwyn, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Carroll and Commissioners. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking for the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy's Public Policy Committee has reviewed these proposals and thanks the project team for their presentation. The Ladies Mile Historic District is well known for its historically commercial buildings and their robustly decorated facades, built mostly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Many by noted architects, they represent different styles from an era when commercial structures dominated the area, but with relatively uniform heights, similar composition, massing, fenestration, and eye-catching ornament. They come together to create a strong sense of place. The continued resurgence of this neighborhood for retail and mixed uses, including nonprofits, has been driven by these exceptional streetscapes. The intersection of 5th Avenue and 21st Street is no exception. The Mohawk Building at 160 is a neo-Renaissance style office, store, and loft building designed by R.H. Robertson, 1891-92. The Urban Exchange Bank is a Beaux-Arts style store and loft building designed by Buckman and Fox, completed in 1903. Spanning 21st Street, they contribute to the impressive blocks that are the hallmarks of the district. Many buildings in Ladies Mile have had alterations or rooftop additions. These changes are largely sympathetic to the district. They blend in, they're recessed, they pull back from roof lines. They do not intrude on the special quality of the district. Indeed, the district has maintained its special character even with these modifications. We do not object to the rooftop addition at 165th. Like so many others, it will help keep this building active, but does not distract or detract. The Sky Bridge is another story. Considered as another kind of rooftop addition, it is inescapably visible and would detract from the district. The clear glass design sounds like a technological marvel, but it won't disappear into the sky. The underside will be a shadow over passersby. The lighting will be a distraction. Despite the best of intentions, it's hard to see how cleaning and maintenance will keep it so pristine. It requires unnecessary removal of historic fabric. It reframes the street in a way that is not typical of the district. It changes the priority of the buildings, and it privatizes the sky. It's an imposition on the Ladies Mile Historic District and should be rejected. Thank you for the opportunity to express the Conservancy's views.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we will be hearing from Deepika Sani. Deepika Sani, I am promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deepika Sani, and I'm speaking on behalf of Madison Square Park Conservancy. Madison Square Park Conservancy supports the Simons Foundation's proposed rooftop addition and Skybridge, which would connect their 2 headquarters buildings. As a nonprofit organization that raises 100% of the funds to operate and program Madison Square Park, we appreciate the value that strong institutions like the Simons Foundation and Flatiron Institute provide to our neighborhood. The Simons Foundation is a catalyst for economic growth and activity in the Flatiron Nomad neighborhood, as well as the city at large, and we know from working with them that they are eager to expand their capacity. They receive thousands of visitors annually for multi-day scientific lectures and workshops, many of which are open to the public. And their hope is to have a larger space that will not only support their mission, but also accommodate community uses such as the Conservancy's horticulture programs. As community partners, the Simons Foundation has worked with our horticulture team to bring scientists into the park to lead free public programs. Last spring, they partnered with us on programming for our Geometry of Flowers exhibition, and they will host viewing opportunities in the park during the upcoming solar eclipse in April 2024. With respect to the proposed additions, the Simons Foundation invited a number of neighborhood institutions, including the Conservancy, on tours of their buildings and have taken strides to educate us about the design and why the expansion is needed. We realize that additions like this, particularly a Skybridge, and particularly when impacting a historic neighborhood, are subject to close scrutiny, but we feel that the rooftop addition respects existing building and that the Skybridge would not detract from the historic character of our neighborhood. They have chosen materials that work beautifully with each building's unique historical architecture and that are visually appealing in nature. After reviewing the Simon Foundation's proposal and understanding their mission-oriented needs and the justification for their expansion and design choices, Madison Square Park Conservancy supports their proposal for a rooftop addition and Skybridge, and hopes you all will support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from James Metham. James Metham, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. My name is James Metham, and on behalf of the Flatiron Nomad Partnership, I'm here to support the Simons Foundation Skybridge and Rooftop Addition proposal. As the local business improvement district, or BID, for the Flatiron and Nomad neighborhoods, we understand the value of the Simons Foundation and Flatiron Institute that they provide our district in New York City, which will be augmented by this proposal to connect their headquarters at 160 Fifth Avenue and 162 Fifth Avenue. The Simons Foundation is a creative engine for economic growth and activity in the city and here in Flatiron, contributing millions of dollars annually to the hospitality industry, including New York City restaurants, hotels, and the airlines. And over the course of the last decade, the Simons Foundation has invested over $400 million to create a modern campus for their scientists and staff, over 550 today and counting, to perform research as well as convene with one another. They also receive thousands of visitors annually for multi-day lectures and workshops, many of which are open to the public, and seek to engage scientists as well as the non-scientific community. In their proposal, the Simons Foundation has taken strides to be considerate of the Flatiron community and urban fabric. They have designed a Skybridge and rooftop addition that respects the aesthetics of the neighborhood and the historic character of the surrounding Ladies Mile district. The proposed bridge has been designed to preserve sightlines and create minimal light and sound impacts. The full project will better accommodate the Simons Foundation staff in addition to the thousands of annual visitors that will shop at local restaurants and stores and stay at area hotels. As advocates and cheerleaders for Flatiron Nomad, we see this as an important and symbiotic neighborhood project that enhances our community's economy, aesthetic, and sense of place. Finally, the Simons Foundation is a tremendous neighborhood partner. As one of Flatiron's anchor institutions, they've supported our community improvement and outreach efforts over the years and have graciously opened their spaces for bid and community uses. They are also proud proponents of our district-wide public arts program and sidewalk planter program, with 160 and 62 Fifth Avenue becoming the first locations to host these 12 planters. We look forward to the Simons Foundation's continued neighborhood improvement and involvement as they bring their facilities to new heights. We're proud to express our support for the Simons Foundation Skybridge and Rooftop Addition and respectively ask for your vote in support of its approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Ben Dubin-Thaler. Ben Dubin-Thaler, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Dubin-Thaler. I am the founder and executive director of BioBus. BioBus supports the Simons Foundation proposal for the Skybridge and Rooftop Addition. I have my PhD in biophysics. I've lived in Manhattan for about 25 years, and 15 years ago, I bought an old GMC transit bus, like the same kind of bus that used to go all over New York City, and I converted that into a mobile science lab. And we've got research microscopes, like $200,000 worth of microscopes on board that mobile lab, and kids get to come on board during the school day. We park right in front of their school. They get to come on during the school day, look at their own DNA, compost from their school cafeteria, paramecia from like the puddle right outside of their school. And we're going to have our 400,000th New Yorker boarding the bus sometime this school year. And the Simons Foundation has been a key to BioBus's success. Not only have they supported our organization with about $5 million worth of grants and gifts, they helped us launch a campaign to build a second mobile science lab back in 2017, as well as expand the neighborhoods that we work with students more in depth to Harlem. They helped us really transform as an organization, developing our ability to match their funding with city and state support. We now work with the Department of Education, the Department of Youth and Community Development. So Simons has been transformative as a funder, but as this project underscores, BioBus is more than just a funder. BioBus, myself, my co-founder Latasha, and our staff have been part of the national convenings of nonprofits, of science education nonprofits that the Simons Foundation brings from from Puerto Rico all the way to San Francisco, across the nation, where I've been able to learn critical skills on how to develop BioBus here in New York City. And also they have helped us form critical partnerships, for instance, partnerships that helped us recently expand the programs that were born here in the city to Boston. So support for BioBus is just one example, I think, of how committed Simons Foundation is to the city of New York, and making sure that New York City is a beacon for progress in science education across the country. So I'm extremely excited to support the Skybridge and the Rooftop Addition. It'll significantly increase the Simons Foundation's capacity to continue this kind of transformative work on science education, and that's work that I think is deeply in the public's interest to support. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York.
The Victorian Society has reservations about this proposal. First, the applicant is choosing to locate the sky bridge where the construction will require removal of a large section of the prominent cornice at 165th. A typical party for architect-designed office buildings in the early 20th century called for an elaborate 2- or 3-story base, a more simply detailed shaft, and a fully developed cornice which would stand out against the sky. This is the pattern of both 160 and 162. Cutting through the cornice at 160 will diminish the historic unity of this building. A sky bridge on a lower floor would not require destruction of any part of this fine cornice. Second, we question the proposal on stylistic grounds. The applicant has provided photos of several historic sky bridges. In the examples shown, the architectural detailing of the bridges and the buildings they serve are stylistically compatible. The architects for those historic bridges weren't slamming an obviously contemporary addition through the walls of 100-year-old landmarks. The applicants may argue that the modern materials proposed for their bridge will ensure that it almost disappears against the sky. However, we've heard the same argument for glass railings. We know that they are effectively not transparent and that they get dirty. Dirty glass, dirty stainless steel, and dirty carbon fiber will not, in fact, disappear against the sky. Finally, we question the necessity of the installation of a bridge connecting adjacent buildings in the age of Zoom. We know that the Commission does not regulate use, but we feel that in this case it is an appropriate discussion. We recommend that if the concept of a sky bridge is in fact appropriate, it should be lowered to a floor where the installation will be minimally destructive. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Aaron Sanders from A Better New York. Aaron Sanders, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll and members of the Landmark Preservation Commission. My name is Aaron Sanders and I'm the Public Policy Director at the Association for a Better New York. On behalf of ABNY, thank you for the opportunity to express our support for the Simons Foundation's application to obtain a certificate of appropriateness, a requirement to develop a sky bridge between 160 and 162 Fifth Avenue. ABNY is a nonprofit organization representing community stakeholders, including corporations, nonprofits, unions, government authorities, and educational, cultural, and health institutions. The Simons Foundation is conscientious of the project's aim and impact. They have taken strides to be considerate of the community and the urban fabric that is the Ladies Miles Historic District. In collaboration with their architects and engineers, they have designed a sky bridge and a rooftop addition that respects the aesthetics of the district and its defining historic character. Through the use of glass and other materials, the proposed bridge has been designed to not only functionally support their operations, but to also take great care as to not distract from the historic features of either of the buildings associated with the project. The design preserves sight lines and becomes a wonderful addition to the built environment. The rooftop concept is not visible from the street and it minimizes impact of light and sound. ABNY supports the Simons Foundation's design, which is both functional and beautiful. In addition to its architectural merits, the project will also contribute to the economic growth and activity of New York City by supporting the ongoing operations and growth of the Simons Foundation wholly. Over the course of the last decade, the Simons Foundation has invested over $400 million to create a modern campus for their scientists and staff respectively. Over 550 today and counting to perform research as well as to convene with others in the heart of Manhattan. They also host thousands of visitors annually for multi-day lectures and workshops that contribute to the economic viability of New York City, many of which are open to the public and seek to engage scientists as well as other non-scientific stakeholders within the community. For the aforementioned reasons, we support the Simons Foundation's Certificate of Appropriateness application, and I've submitted a copy of this testimony via email for the record. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. At HDC, we love sky bridges. There are only a handful of historic sky bridges left in New York City, and we fear in particular for the loss of the Gimbel Sky Bridge, which the Commission has refused to designate. We believe the applicant could look to these historic precedents, many of which are included in their application, to inform the design of their proposed sky bridge. Historic sky bridges offered ornamentation and visual interest to the streetscape while also being stylistically related to the buildings they connected. We believe the design of the proposed sky bridge should relate visually to the existing buildings. Finally, we find the sky bridge's proposed placement inappropriate because it cuts through the cornice of 165th Avenue. Sky bridges are normally anchored below the cornice so as not to disturb that crowning visual element. In fact, one side of this sky bridge is anchored appropriately. The bridge enters 162 Fifth Avenue below the cornice as it should. We'd like to see the same thing repeated across the street. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Carlo Casa. Carlo Casa, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Carlo Casa. I'm the Director of Policy and Research at the New York Building Congress. The Building Congress represents over 500 constituent organizations and over 250,000 skilled tradespeople and professionals dedicated to the growth and prosperity of our city. We strongly express our support for the Simons Foundation Skybridge and Rooftop Addition proposal. As champions for advancing construction best practices and expanding New York City's economic opportunities, we understand the value that both the Simons Foundation and Flatiron Institute provides. We emphatically support their proposal to further enhance their work by connecting their headquarters at 165th Avenue and 162 Fifth Avenue. The Simons Foundation is a catalyst for economic growth and activity in the city, contributing millions of dollars annually to the hospitality industry, including New York City restaurants, hotels, and airlines. This support is essential to our citywide pandemic recovery. Over the course of the last decade, the Simons Foundation has invested over $400 million to create a modern campus for over 550 scientists and staff performing essential research to improve the lives of New Yorkers everywhere. Much of this work was interior and exterior restoration work previously reviewed and approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. The Simons Foundation has taken strides to be considerate of the community and the urban fabric that is the Ladies Miles Historic District. Its expert architects and engineers have designed a sky bridge and rooftop addition that respects the aesthetics of the neighborhood and its historic character. The proposed bridge takes great care not to distract from the historic features of either building or the district, and instead preserves sightlines. It will become a wonderful addition to the built environment. We celebrate the Simons Foundation's ability to develop an addition to the built environment that is both functional and beautiful, and will add value in ways that all New Yorkers can benefit. After reviewing the Simons Foundation's proposal and understanding their design philosophy, we are proud to express our support for the Sky Bridge and Rooftop Addition, and we call on you to vote in support of its approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised for this item. Okay, it looks as though Columbia University has raised their hands to testify. So Columbia University, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. My name is Nathan Robb, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Government Relations at Columbia University. As a world-class research university, Columbia has a long and distinguished history advancing the boundaries of science and promoting teaching, scholarship, and research at the highest standards. At the same time, Columbia has always recognized the importance of its location in the city of New York. It is the university's placement here in New York, which has led to so many fruitful partnerships and collaborations across the city, and which has been so critically important to our students, our faculty, and our administration. One especially important partnership for Columbia has been the long relationship with the Simons Foundation. Columbia and the Simons Foundation have a long history of groundbreaking scientific collaborations, and they have awarded Columbia significant grant funding for research across fields as varied as autism, computational mathematics, and quantum physics. Columbia faculty and students are also regular visitors to the Simons Foundation's campus to participate in weekly group meetings, journal clubs, workshops, and scientific conferences. By creating a new conferencing space and connecting it to existing convening spaces via an elegant skybridge, this project will enable still more of these critical interactions, helping foster even deeper connections between Columbia and the Simons Foundation, benefiting New Yorkers and communities across the globe. It will also allow for more frequent and richer collaborations with colleagues from other top-tier institutions worldwide. Focusing on the design of the Skybridge and Rooftop Addition, we celebrate the Simons Foundation's historical investments in these properties and the care they've taken to both preserve and modernize them to reflect the scientific innovation happening within. We expect no less with respect to the proposed project. The rooftop addition was carefully planned, and the materials chosen are sympathetic to its surroundings and take great care to not be visible from the ground. As for the Skybridge itself, this proposal is also a reflection of scientific advancement and respect for the historic fabric of the neighborhood. The Simons Foundation and its designers have taken strides to minimize the impact, both physical and visual, of the bridge by using materials that are minimalistic and elegant. For all of these reasons, Columbia enthusiastically supports efforts by the Simons Foundation to expand its campus and respectfully urges the Landmarks Preservation Commission to support this project as well. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Sharita Paulson. Sharita Paulson, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll and commissioners. I'm Sharita Paulson here as a busybody architect to support this application for the Skybridge and Rooftop Addition. The Rooftop Addition is clearly appropriate. It's minimally visible. It's designed as a rooftop element. So I want to focus my comments on the Skybridge itself. And the first question, of course, is why have a Skybridge? And I think that the presentation has amply demonstrated the importance and purpose of this Skybridge and the need for it to connect these two buildings. The Skybridge itself represents an unobtrusive, elegant addition utilizing contemporary materials and design strategies to minimize its presence. The range of design choices shown in the represented examples as precedents is of interest, as those added as later constructions range from utilitarian to highly designed. The choice to propose a state-of-the-art contemporary addition is meaningful given the differences of the two buildings that exist and the two entities that this will connect. So this represents a unification of these two convening institutions. The location is appropriate away from the wide Fifth Avenue intersection, and the decision to propose the facade locations for the landing zones is important. It removes the least amount of historic material and requires the least intervention in the structure of these historic buildings and is probably the best location for these two to land. It also allows, if as many not-for-profits do have changes in interest over the years, it does allow for a reversible situation in case either of the properties has to be sold. I want to also thank the owners and the institutions for providing this and also for choosing an excellent design team. I want to recognize Nick Leahy, who led the team to design the beautiful red steps in Times Square for the TKTS booth. This is a man who knows modern glass and the need to really design something very sophisticated, and an important addition to the streetscape. So I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we will be hearing from Maria Claw. Maria Claw, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Okay. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I am here representing Math for America. And Math for America is an organization that has been supporting math and science teachers, approximately 1,000 at any given time, within New York City. It's funded almost entirely by the Simons Foundation at a level of approximately 25 million per year. And the whole goal of this has been to keep really wonderful math and science teachers in the classroom so that students, particularly in high school and middle school, but also in elementary school, can be inspired to become scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. And I suspect many people don't know that the Simons Foundation has made this huge investment in New York City over the last roughly almost 20 years. I am now the president of Math for America as of about 7 weeks ago, but I've been on the board for 15 years, so I've been following it very carefully. And I also am one of the founders of Math for America in Los Angeles and one of the proponents for creating a national program that is modeled on Math for America in New York City and that will be administered by the National Science Foundation. So I just want to say how much I appreciate what the Simons Foundation has done for so many aspects of New York City, but especially for our children, and especially for our children in terms of learning math, science, and engineering. I think this is a wonderful proposal for the Sky Bridge. I actually live about a block and a half from where the Sky Bridge will be. And I think I echo what has been said by others. It will be a beautiful addition, and I very strongly hope that this will be approved. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through the attendees list. I do not see any further hands raised. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the hand raise button now. Okay, no further hands are raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval for the rooftop proposal and denial of the Skybridge proposal. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. So we've heard a lot of support, but we did hear some testimony about presence of it and then the placement and design of it. And if you'd like to respond to those, that would be.
Well, thank you, Chair Carroll. Actually, I think you would like to just respond to the need, the purpose first, and then I'll address that.
Thank you, Cass. And this was mentioned a few times. What is the purpose? And I think, the gentleman made reference to in the age of Zoom. I think we all recently lived through a period of time, which was nothing but the age of Zoom. And our philosophy, which is absolutely at the heart of the foundation and everything we do, is that whether it's in art and culture or in science or in engineering, there is something inherently wonderful and beautiful. And the big breakthroughs come when humans get in a room together. It's those interstitial interactions. It's those informal, unplanned conversations over a cup of coffee or walking across a sky bridge after a lecture to go to a breakout session where you have those aha moments. So I think we have a really strong need to be able to do more of this kind of convening. And I think our plan connects a new convening center with an existing convening space in a way that is, as you've heard, respectful to the historic district, which we love and which we've made our home. Thank you.
Thanks, Ewan. And just briefly, commissioners, I want to sort of address two groups of comments, sort of location and design. I'll also note that sort of our discussion with the community board was quite an active discussion, as they often are, but this one perhaps more so. Obviously, they were supportive of the addition. The recommendation to not support the bridge was actually quite a split vote. A third of the board supported the bridge. There were roughly 30 full board members there that night. 10 of them supported the bridge, which I think is actually quite telling. These are people who live in this community. But I think, focusing first on location, we sort of talked about why we think it's appropriate for its location at the top of the building. Obviously, it is similar to the location of other historic sky bridges throughout the city. They exist on multiple elevations, some very low down and others all the way up at the top. They have distinct designs, but they all sort of have a similar, particular bridges that were added after both buildings were constructed. There is a sort of ad hoc interaction. And so discussions about impacts and things like that, we're conscious of that, but this is consistent with the way these bridges interact with historic buildings. Historic bridges interact with historic buildings. I think I've noted about the sort of structural interventions. This location allows us to basically have an additive interaction as opposed to removal. So we're able to actually add structure support the bridge instead of removing both structure and cladding. I think that's significant. And then just in terms of sort of impacts, as I mentioned, there's been a lot of focus on the cornice at 165th Avenue. As I mentioned, it's actually quite a small area. The full line, this is obviously a corner building with frontages on 5th and 21st Street. 235 feet of linear cornice. We're impacting just 5% of that, 100 feet into the block. So it's actually quite a small area. And then also remembering that cornice is fiberglass. It's a good replica, but it is fiberglass. And then I think also on design, I just want to address a couple of comments about compatibility, appropriateness, et cetera. I tried to make the point by sharing some of those images of commission approvals of glass architecture, particularly in masonry contexts, that there are a lot of different ways to define appropriateness. It's an incredibly flexible word. And I think the commission has recognized that masonry fronted buildings, for instance, in Soho are appropriate, just as glass fronted buildings are as well. And I think in this context, largely a masonry district, but also with cast iron buildings, that this approach, this sort of more contemporary approach, is also appropriate. I think we see this as compatible. Compatibility is defined in a lot of different ways, but we see our design as very compatible, respectful, and actually secondary to the buildings around it. These relationships that are so key to sort of finding appropriateness, the relationship of an addition to a building within the context of a district. I think we've shown that there is a relationship here, a clear relationship to this concept in the district of bridging, which existed and exists historically and today. The growth of buildings and sort of campuses within the district. And then, of course, sort of the importance of bridging to enhance circulation and collaboration. And then finally, the role building technologies have played in this district in particular, in the way there's a clear evolution visible on the streetscape, and how this design both taps into that and embraces those advances. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
I have a quick question. You don't seem to put that much PV up on the roof, and there seems to be an opportunity to put more on it. Is there a reason it's so limited?
Is that a Nick or a maybe? So Alex Avellero, who designed the addition for 160, maybe I'll have him answer that question. It's a good question.
Yes, Alex Avellero from TPG Architecture. So the issue of photovoltaics came up. As it happens, the slope of the addition is actually north facing. It's suboptimal for photovoltaics. So running through the calculations, we've taken all these south facing areas, which are optimal for photovoltaics. It's suboptimal on the main slope of the roof.
Right. Any other final questions? Okay, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Hoffer-Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And there are two components to this application. There is the rooftop addition on 165th Avenue, and then the Sky Bridge connecting them. And, the rooftop addition, I think, is pretty consistent with the kinds of rooftop additions we see in this district. But I don't want you all to forget it. It's helpful to have some comments about the addition on the record. And then, of course, the Sky Bridge, and we've heard the applicant's presentation and testimony about the presence of historic sky bridges, where they connect to buildings, how they connect to buildings, how their designs relate to buildings. And so one can think about all of that as we begin our comments. So Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start it?
Kick it off. First of all, as I was listening to a fair amount of testimony, which I was happy to see, we don't have enough testimony in some these days, and I don't know why that is, but it was great to see people weighing in on this. I just want to separate, it was for my own mind, I was separating on what a terrific thing the Simons Foundation is. I didn't know much about it. And a lot of the testimony, and in fact, the presentation was about what good thing it is that they are in New York and staying in New York. And I certainly, as a citizen, appreciate that. But as a commissioner, I had to separate that out a little bit, because what we're here for is to do what's appropriate. I also, the need is related, but also that is a little bit outside. What is being proposed, is it physically appropriate? But the need does weigh into my thinking because of the wonderful section that you gave us with all the extant departments and presumably lots of equipment that is in there as well. So that did weigh in on my thinking. I want to also say that I don't know how many people know this, but there's a former occupant in this building at 160. Anybody know? McKim and White. So heavy responsibility to be sure we're getting it right here. And in a nutshell, I'll say I think they are getting it right. And let me just say quickly, the rooftop addition is almost a no-brainer. It's almost not visible, maybe not even visible. Certainly if it is, it's so minimally, it's not important. And of course, that huge parapet helps that. But so let me address a little bit the issue, which is will always be an issue, I think, always. It will certainly outlive our lives, and that is, classical or historic, whatever you want to term that kind of architecture, versus something that's new and different and of today. I could see, and there's lots of in fact, almost all the examples you gave were linking two buildings with something that was similar. And this is a break of that. And I'm just disposed to thinking that when we build, generally speaking, when we build today, we should build of our time with our materials and our technology. And I think this is a breathtaking example of how that can be done. I wanted, if you will, to very quickly take you back 45 years to a young kid, me, working with my senior partner now, Jack Beyer. We came to this table, not this table, but some other table that the commission worked around then, to bring a new building at the South Street Seaport. We've also brought in our soon-to-be, not partner, but principal of our firm, James Marston Fitch, arguably the Dean of Preservation in America at that point, who had just left Columbia. We had, Jack and I, working with Fitch, had looked at a block of all brick buildings, and this was an infill. What to do? We looked at brick building after brick building after brick building, and decided the existing brick buildings, the new iron building, and iron building, those buildings. So breathtakingly, we said maybe something that's dramatically different, and we proposed a steel building. The coda to that is, of course, it was to be the Bogardus, it was left of the Bogardus building, so that's another story. But the principle here is a radically different material linking that block. And it seems to work, and you can go see it today and make your own thoughts. But I'm still proud of that building all these years later because it was a different material, not because it was part of the same context. So here we have a similar thing, and I think I think it's a brilliant juxtaposition of new technology and of glass and the extraordinary thinness of the structure. The question of hitting the thinness, I think most people think what's happening maybe on the 162 building is rather okay, although we'll see in a minute. But that the crashing into the cornice on the other side and other parts of the building too, other parts would be dismantled and stored in the basement, I guess, somewhere in the building, not stored in a warehouse, in the building. I guess partly I can accept that, generally speaking, but specifically, once I realized that that's a fiberglass recent addition, it makes it a little bit easier as well. So I'll stop now, but I think I've expressed an opinion about this, which is a stake in the sand. We'll see how we go around the table.
Great. All right. And I just to sort of follow up on your thoughts, I think it was also persuasive that being able to load the weight on the roof rather than having to remove more fabric in the facade, I think is very persuasive as well. All right. And the fact that historic examples were at varying heights. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting case. I know historically the city has been having issues with every time you want to apply for the Sky Bridge, like Hunter College, and you require a lot of effort to get it done. So I'm so glad to follow Vice Chair Glenn's talk. I want to separate into a couple of buckets. Obviously, the first thing is obviously the rooftop addition is a no-brainer. The community board supported as to the testimony. I think that in my mind, I was thinking about if we were in a different city today, we would be having the same discussion, and that being Minneapolis, right? Because there's a need, because the weather, sky bridges are throughout Minneapolis. Here in New York, we seem to be very resistant to that. So, I do not know what the process besides landmark. I know you have to go through other commissions. But the other bucket I want to say is, not just the Simon Institute, but myself, my father and my family named me Carl Boatmaker, but not a boatmaker. Boatmaker means bridge maker, which is that before you create a bridge, you need a boat to go to the other side. And that entails heavy responsibilities. And also, that's a connection. At the end of the day, it's a connection to a new era that the two sides never connected before. So I think that the struggle for me as a commissioner on the LPC, obviously we have a standard for preservation. This is something new. This is something going to uncharted with a new material. But I'm similar to Vice Chair Brown in the sense that this follows our human progress, right? Which is that this is a frontier we've never seen before, which is that you have never crossed this area, you have never done this before. And the city that typically is not supportive of this type of project. But if you want to make progress, if you want to make scientific progress, as well as new materials, new paths, I would would like to see what the rest of the commission thinks.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
So I have a brother, a son, and a prospective daughter-in-law who are all research scientists. And I didn't know about the Simons organization, and it sounds phenomenal, and it's particularly phenomenal that it's in New York. So I first think this is great. I think the rooftop addition, as others have said, is a no-brainer. in thinking about the bridge, I have walked by the Trinity US Realty buildings for 4 years and never noticed the bridge. I also live a block from the Staples Street Bridge, which I noticed from the beginning. And the point that when you put it up high, people don't notice. And I'm an architect who tends to look up high. So I just think that programmatically it makes sense. Structurally, it makes sense. And I think it's better that it doesn't look like it's old, but is something new that is added. And so I think this is totally appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldblum.
Thanks. Agreement on the rooftop addition, agreement on the wonderfulness of the client and the program and all that stuff. I think that the bridge is a beautiful artifact, a beautiful object. I think its design and its configuration are appropriate, but I think its placement is not. Cass made a big case for the reduced percentage of cornice to be removed, and I kind of look at it like, you know, I have 32 teeth, but you knock out one, it might be a small percentage, but it's very noticeable. And I think that the cornice on a building like this is very noticeable. It's a very distinctive part of the building. And I think that the break that is occasioned by the proposed bridge is inappropriate. I think also that looking at the examples of bridges that were shown, first of all, you know, I don't believe any of them were approved by this commission, but they are historic facts. I kind of wrestle with how we should look at them as precedents, though. I'm not sure. I think that the buildings themselves are industrial buildings in their intention and in the essence of their, you know, the importance of their designation relates to their industrial history. And I think that the notion of having functionally driven bridges or other structures is appropriate. However, the bridges that I have looked at seem to preserve the integrity of the architectural expression of the building without, you know, while at the same time imposing a new thing on them. That being the, you know, this connection, this very unusual connection. I think that the connection is fine. I just think it has to be at least a floor down. I also think that on the building to the right, it's also impacting a uniquely decorative part of that building. And these buildings are made out of, you know, stretches of relatively repetitive floors with repetitive designs. And then, you know, the bases and the crowns tend to be more decorative. Here, the proposal is to remove the most decorative part of that building, you know, maybe shy of the cornice itself. So I think that, you know, I understand that the programmatic rationales for placing it where it has been placed, the structural rationales have all been laid out, and I understand them. But I think, like Fred said, from a strictly preservation-oriented approach, I don't think that this is the right place for it. I think if it were a floor or two down, I would have no qualms at all about approving it as it's designed.
Commissioner Chapin.
Well, I'm kind of in that same position as Michael. I think that the rooftop addition is fine. I think that the materials and the design of the Sky Bridge are fine. I'm happy with that. I also think that one, you know, up in the air is a good idea. You know, I don't have a problem with that at all. My concern, and that motivated my question about could you actually put it on the roof, and, you know, knowing there are issues about that, was that I was concerned about the way the impact on the 162 side looked like, you know, looked in terms of the decorative piece. And Michael's right about when you look at the pictures, seeing the break in the cornice line it looks very off. So yeah, there might be other issues about moving it down somewhat, but I would like to see something that goes across without affecting the line of the roof and ideally not affecting that really decorative portion of, I think it's 162. And we, they said they tried a variety of options. They didn't show us all because, they felt they had the best one to show us. Perhaps they have one but yeah. So that's really my only issue with the project, which is where it connects exactly, because I think this is not the best connection for the two historic buildings.
I think to avoid the decorative top floor of 162, you would have to bring it down a couple of levels. And I think you're in an entirely different, already programmed space. And I think that's the problem for them. And to do something that goes above would create rooftop additions that are more visible. So
yeah, I understand that. And that's why I thought bringing it down a bit might be better. And in terms of even if it impacted the decorative on one side, I think Mike's right about that cornice issue, that really is very, and yes, you don't look up at it a lot, but when you do, you see a break in the cornice, and I find that troubling.
Okay. I mean, yeah. And I do think the applicants also showed, that fire escapes and other circulation appurtenances have over time resulted in the breaking of cornice lines in a way that's pretty typical in this district, but I understand. Commissioner Holford Smith?
Yes, I think just to touch on the addition, I think the rooftop addition is fine. And I think that the design of the bridge is really fantastic. It's a scientific foundation and they're using cutting edge technology, and I think that's very appropriate. I also think having something that's visible, and obviously it's going to be visible, will hopefully spark some interest in people wanting to know why it's there, who's in the building, and perhaps give more visibility to the Simons Foundation, which is an amazing entity. I am okay with the location of the bridge. I think it removes the least amount of historic fabric. I think, programmatically it'd be very difficult to lower it. And I think given the fact that the cornice on 160 is a later replacement, that material is not original to the building. I'm okay with the placement of it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
The addition of the rooftop penthouse approved. I think the bridge is beautiful. I think look at the image is quite powerful, but I do have one caveat on this, and it's interesting because of the angle and the way it penetrates the other building, it sets up an image that's difficult. It's kind of this modern bridge penetrating this 19th century thing and blasting through it. And, it's a movie image, it's an image we pick up in photography, but it's a strong image. And I'm questioning myself because I like it. Whether if it was horizontal, just a horizontal, simple plane, would I have that image? Would I just say it's a beautiful thing going across the street? But the angle, the way it hits. But if you push me, I would say I can approve it.
Okay. I think no matter where it is, it would have an angle because the floors just don't align with each other. And I think some of the historic examples also aligned and jogged to address differing floor levels. Right, Commissioner Master?
Yes, I think that the rooftop addition is fine. It's minimally visible and typical of what we find in this district. So when Wellington mentioned Minneapolis, I thought that was interesting because I actually grew up in Spokane, Washington. And in Spokane, we have what we call skywalks all throughout downtown, connecting all the buildings. And it's because of the harsh weather, because we have snow all the time. So I have a fondness for these types of I guess, structures. I think that a lot of good points were made. I think that the introducing the new material, I think in this case makes sense because it is minimally visible rather than trying to, replicate something, that's more similar to the two buildings. I like it. I think it's very elegant. I like the fact that they're using the newest technology. In terms of where the Skybridge is located, I also think that it's really important that we don't remove a lot of historic fabric. And I think that on the one side, I think you can secure it because you have a lot of that space on the roof and the rooftop addition. So I find that the current location is fine.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu.
Okay. So I would also say that I think as an organization, fantastic. I really support the kind of collaboration with the higher ed and also industry. I personally do science work myself. I totally understand the need for physical gathering and being together. I think that having the Skybridge in itself expresses that desire to connect and collaborate, which is really the mission of that move and joining these two buildings. And I think it'll really bring a lot of vitality and more energy to this area, which is all plus. I also support the contemporary language. I have no problem with that. I think that the inside of the buildings are going to be completely renovated. They're going to be modernized. They're going to be doing science and research that is very different than what this building was built for. And I expect that. What the bridge tells me is it's connecting activity within two historic envelopes that is new and exciting. All of it I support. In fact, I would be okay with 3 bridges, to tell you the truth.
No.
But my only point here, and I think I am supporting some of the other comments here, connectivity is great. I think it'll look, I'd like to see the crossing of the street by pedestrians above and not being encumbered by the traffic below, which is getting crazier and crazier as years go forward and the density and issues. So I like that sense of connectivity of the city fabric above the street level. My only issue is, as others have said, and Michael started saying it, is I have a hard time with where it is. It is a very ambitious project. You've got great architects working on it. I have all the faith that this can be solved. And my only feeling here is how can we make this just spectacular? How can we improve it? And I do think that the double height bay right below is the appropriate place on the facades because it accommodates this move, which I think is smashed in the proportion at the top. And it hurts a little both facades. So because it's such an expression, and I would support that being a beautiful expression and a light, elegant expression that will hopefully have people in it a lot, right? But because there's only one, it is very minimal. It's a lot of work has gone into designing this as minimally as possible and surgically designed and coordinated. I appreciate all of that. I just wish that where it hit had the same care of what was done into the design of the piece itself. And that's because ultimately what we're doing is trying to, I see us as positive towards advancement, positive to revitalizing these older buildings and giving them life and accommodating some changes. But I do think that the dialogue of historic and new want to be a dialogue that is respectful to each other. They're different, but they respect each other. The cornice is just such a major element on the building that I feel like it's too heavy-handed. If I could just lower it a little, fantastic. It's my reaction.
Okay. And Wellington, I just want to confirm you were comfortable with it, correct?
Yeah, but I do sense the, the suggestions of the commissioners and they do have valid points.
Okay. All right. So I think where we are is we do have enough to vote this out today. We can encourage you to think about the location as you continue to develop the plans. And, would strongly recommend that you do that, but I think we are poised to make a motion today. So Vice Chair Bland, can I ask you to do that? Let me find it.
Much reading.
Do you want to say?
No. The major requirement of being a commissioner is being able to read really well. Okay, and the matter of 162 Fifth Avenue, Smart Historic District. This is a Beaux-Arts style store and office building designed by Buchanan and Fox and built in 1903. The application is to alter the facade, install a sky bridge and related light fixtures. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Ladies Mile Historic District. I recommend approval, noting that the proposed work will result in to significant architectural features of the building, that there is historical precedent for the installation of the sky bridge between the two buildings across the street, especially for institutional usage throughout New York City. That the placement of the sky bridge toward the top of the building and set back on the side street from the prominent corner will limit its visual impact on the buildings in typical streetscape views, especially from Fifth Avenue. That the slight tilt in elevation of the sky bridge, which is a result of the two connected buildings not aligning in terms of floor levels, will not be readily perceptible, and the alignment will be orthogonal in plan, calming its overall presence. That the portions of the building to be altered for the installation of the sky bridge, including a portion of the previously repaired fiberglass and metal cornice and limited amounts of terracotta, will be salvaged and carefully stored on site for use in future repair campaigns or in the event that the sky bridge is removed. That the light and air contemporary design of the sky bridge will not compete with the elaborate ornamental architectural features of the historic buildings. That the modern materials of the proposed sky bridge, consisting of structural glass walls and roof and carbon fiber decking, will help to differentiate it from historic buildings. That the light fixtures illuminating the sky bridge will be carefully installed at window openings and finished to match the adjacent masonry and will be minimally visible from the street, thereby not calling undue attention to themselves, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the buildings or the Ladies Mile Historic District.
And Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
I second it.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin, nay. Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Nay.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Nay.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and 3 opposed, the motion passes.
Go do the next one.
Sure. Reading well on that one, I'll keep going. 160 Fifth Avenue in the Ladies Mile Historic District. This is also a neo-Renaissance style office loft and store and loft building designed by Robert Henderson Robertson and built in 1891 to 92. Applications to construct a rooftop addition, alter the facade, and install a sky bridge and related light fixtures. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Ladies Mile Historic District. Recommend approval, noting that the proposed work will result in only limited impacts to significant architectural features of the building, that the proposed rooftop addition will only be visible from public thoroughfares in limited view corridors from moderate to long distances and will not overwhelm the building or the neighboring properties. That the design of the proposed rooftop addition featuring a sloped frame clad in metal panels and other portions clad with terracotta and red brick will add a contemporary layer to the evolution of this building. That there is historical precedent for the installation of the sky bridge between two buildings across the street, especially for institutional usage throughout New York City. That the placement of the sky bridge toward the top of the building and setbacks on the side street from the prominent corner will limit its visual impact on the building and typical streetscape views, especially from Fifth Avenue. That the slight tilt in elevation of the sky bridge, which is a result of the two connected buildings not aligning in terms of floor levels, will not be readily perceptible and will be orthogonal in claiming its presence. That the portions of the building to be removed for the installation of sky bridge, including a portion of the previously replaced fiberglass cornice, plain painted sandstone and plain brickwork will be salvaged and carefully stored on site for use in future repair campaigns or in the event that the sky bridge is removed. That the light and airy contemporary design of the sky bridge will not compete with the elaborate ornamental architectural features of the historic buildings. That the materials of the proposed sky bridge consisting of structural glass walls and roofing and carbon fiber decking will have to differentiate it from historic buildings. That the light fixtures illuminating the sky bridge will be carefully installed at window openings and finished to match the adjacent masonry and will be minimally visible from the street, thereby not calling undue attention to themselves, and that the work will not distract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Ladies Mile Historic District.
Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Nay.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Nay.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Nay.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner not here. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and 3 opposed, the motion passes.
All right. So that's approved. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 24-00254. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1030, Lot 46, 222 Central Park South, the Gainsborough Studios individual landmark. This is an artist's cooperative housing building designed by Charles W. Buckham and built in 1907 to 08. The application is to replace a window.
After this one.
Go ahead.
That was an extremely fascinating presentation. I can't help but say it. I think I actually gained one level of appreciation for the work of the Landmark Preservation Commission watching this case. So, thank you. My name is Jessica Sherwani. I'm with CNR Group. We are a joint contracting and construction management company. And I'm here to present a proposed window replacement case at 222 Central Park South, known as Gainsborough Studios, which is a very prominent designated landmark building. And I would like to walk you through why we're doing it and how we propose to go about it. Obviously, keeping in consideration the permanent character of the building and also the sometimes competing objectives of incorporating modern technology into these buildings that are so precious, and we have the obligation to treat them with respect. We were originally approached by, so these are some historical photographs of the building. Some of you here are familiar with the building at Central Park South. To Central Park South. During the construction of the new building tower, Gainsborough Studios have gone through some rough times, and approached by the clients on the 8th floor to help some of the issues that the window facing Central Park South have encountered as a result of the construction of start. So this is the location of the put back. Okay, is this better? Yeah, it's difficult for me to gauge it. Yeah, should lower it slightly. Yeah. So this is the location of the window in question. The apartment where the window is located has the double height ceiling. So this window is elevated from the floor level in the apartment, therefore not accessible. These are some historical photos that don't actually offer a lot of detail. These are some close-ups of existing conditions, and as I mentioned, there are some concerning issues with the existing window, which is not historical. The glazing is single glazed glass. There are multiple cracked panes in the window, which are believed to be the result of the construction next door and some structural effects of that construction. And when we first looked at this window, we also examined the state of the condition of the existing steel frame, and we discovered that there is some significant corrosion and deterioration in the frame. The frame consists of a steel flat bar, and then the exterior glass stop are two applied steel profiles that appear to be mechanically attached to the center flat bar. We can't examine it up close from the outside because all the window panes are fixed. So we have done this investigative work from the inside of the apartment by removing the decorative mullion covers. And as you can see in that center photograph, there was a visible split in the outside frame where there was a gap because the corrosion that has resulted in all the lower portions of those vertical mullions is pressing on these separate metal pieces and causing some separation there. You can see more of the evidence here. Upon this, we decided that just replacement of the glass would not be a long-term solution. Eventually, this steel frame will deteriorate to a point where it's going to be in unsafe condition. Additionally, there is no thermal break in the frame. The glass does not offer any good thermal insulation, so there are issues with condensation happening on this window during the winter times. And being that the window is located on this upper level of the double height space, it's very difficult to maintain it. What we've zeroed in then was creating a new window that would satisfy these competing objectives of respecting the historical details and at the same time providing the clients and the building with something that would offer longevity, functionality, and modern compliance with modern standards of insulating and energy conservation. So we've commissioned a custom metal fabricator located in New Jersey, Armadillo Metalworks, and they engineered a custom window, steel frame, thermal broken, and incorporating insulating glass into the design. The challenging part was compliance with the original composition of the window, which had double hung units at either end of that assembly. And in reviewing the possible options, there was no desire on the client side to have that functionality since the window cannot be accessed from the floor. Secondly, in order to provide the double hung operation and incorporate the insulating glass, any sort of combination of the fixed frame plus the operable frame of the sash were returning these dimensions in the range of 4 inches, which would far deviate from the original design. So at the end, we've zeroed in on proposing a fixed end unit with simulated mounting and giving up on the functionality in lieu of providing aesthetic details that would approximate the historical window as closely as possible. On the left, we have a drawing of the historical window in this building that have been copied from another filing that was presented to this commission for the window on the second floor. And then on the right side, we have our shop drawing for the proposed solution. And we have a number of comparisons that we can present, comparing the dimensions of the original historical window and what we would be proposing as a replacement. So starting with that first section, this is head condition. At the end unit, where we had the double hung window originally, with non-thermal broken frame and single glazing, and that dimension was 1 inch, with the insulating glass incorporating the glass spacer within the assembly we were able to offer 1 1/4 inch as the new closest match. Similarly, at the center fixed units, the original dimension of 1 inch would be also replaced with the new dimension of 1 1/4.
Before you go,
Yes,
what's your caulk joint dimension?
the caulk joint dimension is 3/8 of an inch.
So it's really going in.
But it's obviously nominal. Yeah, there are some fluctuations, so we feel like to do a proper caulking, the nominal 3/8 would allow, we expect at least 1/8 of an inch variation in the masonry opening. And we also feel like going anything less than 1/4 is kind of not very sound for the caulk joint.
Thanks.
This is a horizontal section through the end unit. So here, historically, we had sort of the main frame of the assembly dimension at 1 3/4, and we are matching that dimension. And then again, on the very end masonry side, the original dimension was 1 inch, which is now replaced with 1 1/4. And in the vertical dimension, where the original double hang unit has been abutting to the fixed pin, that was 2 inches, and we proposing to do that at 1.5 inches, which is consistent with the rest of the vertical mullions on this unit. This is the meeting styles of the double hung unit historically at 1 1/8, and our simulated mountain is proposed to match the vertical dimension of 1.5 inches, similarly to how the original historical window at the meeting style, that dimension reflected the size of the vertical mullions. In addition, the construction of the window, as I mentioned, that would incorporate steel frame, custom fabricated. We would be coating it with zinc-rich primer to provide the proper rust proofing and not allow for any onset of corrosion, followed with an epoxy paint by Tememek, and matching the historical color that has been consistent for other applications in this building. We're proposing a sealant for the caulk joint in the limestone color, which closely matches the stone facade of the building. In terms of upgrade to the energy efficiency, we are proposing 1 3/16 thick low iron insulated glass composed of one exterior layer of tempered laminated glass. So the laminated glass would offer some additional soundproofing and also would prevent, in case there was any future issue with glass cracking, the laminated layer would offer another level of public safety. And then we have 1/4 low iron tempered glass as the inside layer, which leaves us with 1/2 inch spacer, which should provide for a very good thermal efficiency of that window. We've attached here the full shop drawings for and on the inside, we also installing these thermal brakes, which are these spacers that will cap and serve as the interior glass stop made out of polyethylene and then covered with aluminum cladding that would be painted to match the interior. We discussed the caulk joint, and the attachment to the existing facade is all behind the line of waterproofing and the caulk joint. So we're not penetrating the cladding stone on the facade. We anchoring the window to the backing masonry. We believe that by employing this custom solution, we've come as close as we could to meet those competing objectives, and we would like to get your opinion on it.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Holford Smith.
So we've approved window replacements in this building before.
We have.
Is there sort of a standard that exists for the building?
So we've approved another floor so we know that historically these were steel windows with double hungs at the end. And on a lower floor, we approved a replacement that had a simulated double hung on the end. It was a casement operation with a horizontal meeting rail. And the application that's before us today is very similar to that, except that they won't be casement, they'll be fixed. But the planes and will be very similar. The simulated sort of meeting rail using a horizontal muntin will be the same, and the dimensions are very close to both the other approved one and the historic window. Yes, Commissioner Goldblum.
So on the existing photos that you had of the corrosion, I didn't see in the existing profiles that steel bar. Is the profile of it, was that like a square cap like you have over that steel bar? That's what you found? That's what's there now?
Yes, because the cap was removed, so you haven't seen, you're talking about the interior?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
And there were clips visible on these photos, and that was sort of a friction fit. So I removed that.
Understood.
But now we kind of upgrading it to include that, plastic polyethylene spacer.
So it looked from the photos that there was some rusting or corrosion. Would you say that it's majority corroded, a little bit corroded? You had said that in the future it could become such that it was a problem. How is it today?
So today, I would say there is about 25% loss of structure at the bottom of these vertical mullions.
And if you were to kind of scrape it, bondo it, put it with a proper coating, would it have a reasonable lifespan?
So we've looked into that possibility, right? But I can actually just scroll back to those photos. Our concern is that right now, you see that gray outside, that's the waterproofing membrane that has been installed over the stone sill. And these metal vertical bars just sort of terminate right at the level of that membrane. And we suspect that they are corroded below that membrane as well. And we would not be able to truly kind of restore that integrity without digging into that masonry and disturbing the membrane. And obviously, possibly opening a can of worms. So
your plan is to actually remove the entire window and also kind of dig up that waterproofing and kind of put your new window down on the masonry?
So our plan...
Or are you going over the frame?
Our plan is to actually install... Yeah. So
you're going over the frame?
Yes, this is the membrane right now. And the frame is kind of like buried in it, slightly elevated. But we were trying to avoid disturbing that condition and really digging into that masonry there.
So you're going over the frame, and that's true for the sides as well?
No, just on the sides. We're staying kind of true to the historical dimension, as you've seen. But here we are introducing this extra
sort of curb with the waterproofing integrated into the membrane and going over the curb. So, and then the caulking becomes sort of a second line of defense, but we believe that that will be a very sound and really proper way to mitigate any moisture intrusion.
And are there any photos of the new work? Has that gone in yet? Do we know if you could see from the street, if the appearance of the old and the new are in fact compatible?
Let's see if Marie can tell us. Let's put her there.
So this is the window on the second floor.
And that's a new window.
That's a new window.
That's the commission approved window with the simulated double hungs.
And you said that your dimensions are close to this. How close?
I think our dimensions are closer to the historical window because the casement operation on this window actually introduces this additional secondary frame within that last unit, as you can see on these photos.
Okay, thanks.
All right, other questions? All right, let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one participant with their hand raised, that being Todd Williams. Todd Williams, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Oh, he's the applicant? Okay, so should we allow him to speak?
Okay. Hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I'm sorry I was not able to be there. I've been sick and I'm well now. I'm an architect, actually, the architect for this apartment, and has been living in the building and have my studios in the building since the early 80s. So I was involved with the original restoration of the building, which was previous to Landmarks, and I think we did an amazing job. I've worked with Jesse before and think he's the very best of the best. Our clients are actually also wanting to do the very best of the best. This probably standard can't be applied in the future because that would be more expensive. But I believe it's ideal and will suit any addition if it's carefully planned out that actually can be manufactured locally. At any rate, I also, as the board president, can assert that the entire building is in favor of this.
Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. And I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions for the applicant? All right, let's move to close the hearing and have our discussion. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll review this proposal to replace this one window with a new window that will have it's really before us for the change in operation at the two flanking windows, which will have a simulated horizontal mullions, similar to what we approved at a lower floor. So Commissioner Halford Smith, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think the goal being to try to match the existing as close as possible. If the original framing can't be saved, it sounds like the applicant has gone to pretty great lengths to come up with a system that does match the profiles. It looks like in the addendum or the appendix, sorry, the second floor windows were like a standard sort of a Hope's window. That was used, but the heck was it had that chunkier casement on the side. So, I mean, I think, given that this is a completely custom profile, in terms of its performance, it's hard to know, but it looks like it's been, sort of well thought out.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I think it's appropriate.
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 Likewise. Same here.
Appropriate.
I think it's appropriate, but I do think it's of concern because, uniformity is the key here. And if this is a super expensive billion-dollar custom window, are we locking this building into, that kind of level of performance? I worry about it. And I think that, it might, it's a cause for concern, but I think this is an appropriate window.
Yeah, and I think, we do, with all buildings have, and I understand this is a special window, but we can't require one manufacturer. So we do see slight variation in dimensions and profiles in every instance. And in fact, have approved a different window here. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, very thorough presentation. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, so I think we are all in agreement. Will you make the motion, Commissioner Holford Smith? Please.
In the matter of LPC 24-00254, 222 Central Park South, the Gainsborough Studios individual landmark. An artist cooperative housing building designed by Charles W. Buckham and built in 1907-08. The application is to replace a window. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed steel windows will match or approximate the original steel windows in terms of material, configuration, details, and finish. That the discrete change in window operation in the outer lights from double hung to fixed with a simulated meeting rail will recall the original design in terms of its appearance and will not be perceptible when viewed from the street, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the landmark.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin. Aye. Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Berglund.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 10 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you very much for your care. Okay, we'll now move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 9, LPC 24-03617. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1380, lot 23. 753 Madison Avenue, aka 753 to 759 Madison Avenue and 27 to 31 East 65th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is an apartment building designed by Anthony M. Pavia, built in 1959. The application is to install signage and film at display windows.
Okay, please go ahead.
This is your.
Okay. I know your schedule is running behind, so I'm going to make this quick. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Catanese. I'm a project manager at TPG Architecture. We're working with Alexander McQueen on their upcoming project at 753 Madison Avenue. Just to make a note, this is a no-style building, and the storefront was recently approved by the commission a few years ago. The brand is kindly requesting to install bright inspired graphics on the existing storefront windows. Majority of the storefront windows are minimally covered and still provide full views into the space. There are only 2 areas of the storefront in which Alexander McQueen is requesting to conceal the full window. This is due to the fact that the view into the space in these areas has already been concealed by other interior elements. On the front facade, there's a small portion of glazing that's already being concealed by an existing interior wall directly behind the glazing. And then on the side facade, due to the limited amount of solid wall space throughout the sales area, the back of one of the essential millwork display shelves would have been exposed to the public eye. So Alexander McQueen has proposed to cover these 2 areas with full height graphics as a design solution to shield the customer's sight from any unappealing views. And then on one of the full height graphics, they also have some small vinyl graphics for branding. And then that's the extent of the design we're requesting approval on, and thank you for your time.
Right, Commissioner Stewart. Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Is that the only place the name of the store is going to be visible?
The name of the store?
Yeah, the Alexander McQueen.
They will have interior signage, but we removed it from the package because it's going to be further back into the store, more than 18 inches. And they're also going to use some product on the shelving as branding.
Thank you.
Right.
So is this existing storefront that's you're doing graphics on the inside? Is that it?
Yep, vinyl graphics on the
Where's the
interior.
acrylic there that I see in the glass? That's just existing glass.
Oh, so that's for technically the front entry door we are replacing, but it looks, the existing entry door is damaged today. It looks very similar to this one.
Can you show us where it is on this drawing?
The
Is it
door?
one on the top left?
It's
That, okay. Thank you.
And I have pictures of the existing earlier. You'll see it looks very similar. Okay, that's or same similar handles. But other than that, the rest of the storefront is existing.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Let's see if there's any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised in the attendees list, that being Nuha Ansari from Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Okay, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Friends' Preservation Committee does not object to the installation of black vinyl decals on the interior surface of the storefront windows. Although our Preservation Committee is generally opposed to vinyl coverings on extensive areas of glazing and to obscuring entire display windows, we understand that these will only remain in place for a limited period of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised for this item, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you very much. So the testimony was supportive. Is there any other final comment you'd like to make before we move into our discussion?
I don't believe so. Thank you for your time.
All right, great. So we'll move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. This is commission approved storefront, and the proposal is simply to add the graphics in the windows, most of which will retain a significant amount of transparency. There are 2 areas where there's back of house installations, which would not create transparency anyway. And the signage is limited to that one location. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Yes, I think this is approvable. Even though we have this, this vinyl decal, it's still, we still have a high area of transparency, and it's reversible. I think, as they mentioned, it's for a short period of time. I also think that in the retail area, we allow a lot of flexibility and dynamism, so I think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu?
I'm fine, this appropriate. I'm fine with it.
Vice Chair Bland?
I'd say this is the way you deal with a no style building, a non-contributing building, or whatever the heck that building is. I hope one's eye now goes to this. I think it can't help but go to this lower part of the building. I think this is great. I wish it were not limited in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chen?
I was just thinking exactly the same thing before Commissioner Burns spoke. This, when you got a really non-style area, this brings some life to it.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Approvable.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum?
Great.
Does everybody else agree?
Yeah, it's artistic and a nice way to deal with this situation. Very tasteful.
Okay, great. Thank you for those comments. All right, Commissioner Master, will you make the motion?
In the matter of LPC 24 03617 753 Madison Avenue, AKA 753 759 Madison Avenue, and 27 31 East 65th Street, Upper East Side Historic District. An apartment building designed by Anthony M. Pavia and built in 1959. The application is to install signage and film at display windows. I note that the building is not one of the buildings for which the Upper East Side Historic District was designated. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed opaque film will be applied to the interior face of the glazing and that its installation will be reversible. That the limited installation of the film at one display window on the side street will not substantially reduce the overall level of transparency at the majority of storefronts at this large building. That the film will obscure an awkward interior condition at this single bay, and that the work is consistent with the dynamic character of commercial spaces along Madison Avenue.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg, Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Helfer Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Chilton.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next and final item.
All right, that's public hearing item number 1030. This is LPC 23-10724, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1882, lot 36. 1030 Amsterdam Avenue, AKA 500 to 502 West 111th Street, and 1028 to 1034 Amsterdam Avenue in the Morningside Heights Historic District. This is a Renaissance Revival style apartment building designed by Neville and Bagg and built in 1908 to 09. And the application is to upgrade storefronts, install artwork, security gates and light fixtures, and reinstall awnings.
You're against me already.
Please go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Philip Benouris. I'm the owner of the Hungarian Pastry Shop. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present today. So the Hungarian Pastry Shop has been located at this address, 1030 Amsterdam, since 1961. Shop was originally opened by a Hungarian couple, Mrs. Saras and Mr. Viconi, Hungarian immigrant couple. They owned it until 1976, originally operating out of what is now the kitchen space, which is the southern bay of the current storefront. Sometime in the early 70s, they expanded into the dining room and repurposed the kitchen as just a primary kitchen space. My father purchased the Hungarian Pastry Shop with two partners, Yanni Poznikov and Ted Magos, in 1976. I'm going to give a little background on that because it's relevant to the artwork specifically that's going to be incorporated in the storefront. Yanni Poznikov, born in Greece, immigrated to the United States to study naval architecture, ended up becoming a restaurant owner, opened the Symposium restaurant, also in the Morningside Heights area, in 1969, I believe, possibly 1968, and quickly adorned the entire interior with his own artwork, including the ceiling. And it is still there today to be viewed. My father got a job working for Yanni in the early 70s as a waiter and met Ted Magos, who was a customer and an architecture professor at Columbia at the time. They decided to go into business together and purchase the Hungarian Pastry Shop. They also purchased a little bit later what was then right next door, the Green Tree restaurant, which they owned for a few years until I was born, at which point my mother decided that my father owned too many restaurants. Told him to close one or sell one. He sold it to the former head waiter who then sold it to Columbia Cottage, which was there until the late 90s. I'm saying all this to kind of give a context for where the pastry shop fits in the Morningside Heights community. I believe the Symposium restaurant, Greek restaurant, prior to being a Greek restaurant, was a Czech restaurant. There had been a large immigrant population from Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Eastern Europe, living in that neighborhood. It slowly, moved on from the neighborhood, and the community that the Hungarian pastry shop was serving in the 60s, 70s transformed. The kind of establishment of the pastry shop in the neighborhood as it is now really took place in the late 70s and 80s, during the time when Dean Morton was the dean of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine across the street, establishing the cathedral as one of the great cultural landmarks of the city. One of his famous programs was his artist in residence program, and many of the artists were regular customers at the pastry shop, kind of bonding the pastry shop to the community, to the artistic nature of the community, to the creative nature of the community. And Yanni, particularly Yanni Poznikov's art, was a major kind of bridge between those communities. Yanni's art has almost always adorned the facade of the pastry shop. There's a brief period in the late 90s after Yanni had moved to Greece when another artist was given eminence on the storefront. Yanni came back to New York for a visit, and he and I painted the current paintings together in the basement, and then affixed them to the storefront. So Yanni's art has always kind of been essential to the atmosphere and the look of the shop. It's falling apart, and that's why we're here today. The storefront in general is falling apart, and I'm going to let the architects get a little bit more into that. But the store frame is falling apart, and the artwork itself is fraying. It does not seem to be salvageable to me. Although I will keep it in storage for my own care and my kids and whatnot. But it's not working anymore. So the most kind of startling images that you'll see in our presentation is our attempt to show reverence for the history of that artistic integrity of the shop by abstracting the current works into a mosaic that, without trying to replace irreplaceable art. Yanni also passed away several years ago, and I could no longer commission him to create new art for the storefront, although I wish I could. So it's our attempt to pay an honor and tribute to Yanni while creating something that can replace what is deteriorating. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Evie. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Chair Carol, commissioners, thank you for hearing us out today. As Philip mentioned, this is a project we've taken on with really great care and responsibility and excitement. The Hungarian has been central to all of our imaginary of the Upper West Side. Both of us, Jaffer, my partner of the Amends of Local Architecture, have taught at Columbia, and it's been such an anchor for our community also. But that said, we're also in a historic different district that has a different period of significance. So we've been advising on that front as well. We aim to keep the presentation short. It's been a very long day for everyone, so please slow me down if I speak too fast. I tend to do that when I'm nervous, and I'll try to cover as much as possible in as little time. So we are within the, all right. we're in a Neville and Bag Architects building constructed in 1908. The building's residential entry is on 111th Street, and the commercial storefronts are lining the Amsterdam Avenue side of the building. We are, as Philip mentioned, diagonally across from the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine and the Cathedral Close specifically. And the building is also named, is the St. John Court. Quoting from the designation report, the building is characteristic of the Renaissance Revival style. The building's tripart facade features a rusticated limestone base, horizontal limestone banding at the transitional second story and attic, molded silk courses, a two-bay entrance surround with foliate decoration incorporating a panel with incised building name, the historic metal and glass door, and a balcony with a metal railing. This all happens on the flip side on 111. I'll skip a few parts and quote that on the east, there is a minimally articulated light court with horizontal banding at the return. And also of interest are the historic fire escapes, which appear within the project area. So you'll see on the left-hand side is the kitchen area of the Hungarian pastry shop within what was previously the court, and on the right-hand side is the cafe area. As I think Philip did a beautiful job situating the Hungarian for all of you. It's truly been a very loved space. I'll just share an anecdote. When we went to do verify our dimensions, so many of the patrons came to us and had the same reaction as many of you, said, please don't ruin this. This is so important for us. Don't modernize it. And in other words, don't have it blend with its surroundings. This is all of the commercial storefronts within the building. The Hungarian has been a staple. The commercial spaces that surround it have changed over time. None date back to the 60s. And really, you'll see that central to its identity has been the artwork of Yanni Posnikov. A few of the sort of deteriorating conditions that we've come across is really the storefront has been replaced with acrylic. It has truly poor performance. There is only one operable vent over the existing door, which leads the owners quite often to leave the door open to get a little bit of fresh air in the space conditions. The doors themselves are at an angle, not quite accessible to ADA, and so on and so forth. So these are all conditions we wanted to also address at the same time as the image and the identity of the storefronts, and you can find them documented in our submission package. The plan should outline, makes quite evident some of the accessibility issues that come up. In our design, we sort of worked through a series of steps. First off, we're proposing to extend with just the face, the kitchen space to produce a continuous datum across the infill storefront. And from there, we are inserting a bulkhead, which completes the original historic cornice. And we use that the datum over the door and the underside of the kitchen ceiling to propose a band of operable windows over the door so there can be circulation in the air. Offer 2 accessible doors with proper push and pull distances, and subdivide the rest into with an aluminum storefront that is anodized, echoing what was previously there. In a simple diagram in blue on the right-hand side, we see what is now covered in artwork. The artwork now is just slapped onto either acrylic or glass. And we're really proposing to clarify the geometries and try to remove the gates, remove a lot of the busyness and ad hoc nature of it, and reinsert a new version of the artwork in now a solid, opaque, high-performing envelope. How we do that is a digital process. We worked through many variations of mock-ups and prototypes of how we could reinterpret the work without necessarily making a caricature of the work. We work closely with Philip. We try to channel, his very close relationship with Yanni. We've been working on this since 2021 and arrived at a composition that everyone was quite excited about. These are glass, vitreous glass, 3/4 by 3/4 inch, almost like pixels, which are made out of 18 unique parts that repeat and sort of present the composition in a way that makes it both abstract but also familiar and echoes what was previously there. So you'll see we took some of the leading figures and most kind of memorable moments of the original artwork and rescaled, reframed, and reinterpreted through this new material, which in turn will be digitally composed and placed on the storefronts. Beyond the tiled facade, as they are, we'll protect them and then reinstall them. You see the series of operable windows here. And the bulkhead we talked about. I think the design is quite simple, and if there are questions, we can return to it. In plan, we're bringing the facade into a straight datum to make it accessible and have our clearances. In section, we should mention there are some build out furniture and some electrical work in the ceiling. We're not looking to touch the interior at all, so we're working within a tight perimeter. And you'll see on the left what I was mentioning earlier. This is our line of windows directly under the finished ceiling of the kitchen space and carries across into the pastry shop and cafe area. A view of it with the building in its entirety and alongside its neighboring facades. And an axonometric view that I'm terribly sorry registers so intense on this screen, but on my computer looked light and fabulous. I wanted to mention or use this to point to the lights in the back, which mimic the aluminum storefronts. The idea is to reference its geometry and have them disappear. They're of course a little further. They're deemed to produce a sense of just lightness and atmosphere, and are hidden by our awning. This should be everything. We welcome questions, comments. I should say we have the support of the community board who have given us feedback and have been great in the process.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's see if we have any questions. Yes, Commissioner Goldblum.
So what's the color of the aluminum?
Anodized.
Anodized silver, anodized black, brown?
Oh, silver.
Silver. Okay. And the tiles are actually exposed to the outside. They're not behind glass or anything?
Correct. They're made of glass.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
Did you ask the color of the canopy? The color of the canopy?
Existing. Oh, the canopy is the existing canopy, which I can bring up. It's the red awning. It is the very one.
Yeah. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, do we know about the storefront, the original storefront? It's the largest place.
Right. I think Roberto, maybe you can answer. I don't think there are any historic storefronts left at this building.
Picture of the original, what's the other region. And the oldest picture that we found were already replacements. Oh, sorry, already the oldest picture that we found were already replaced.
Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have public testimony. Jeremy Woodoff.
I'm Jeremy Lidoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. We suspect others reacted as we did with a moment of panic when we realized that this application references the longtime home of the Hungarian pastry shop. It seems that a substantial part of New York's architecture and preservation community has a fondness for this establishment, as it has provided sustenance for generations of Columbia affiliates. We're relieved that the new storefront is not for a new tenant. For such an important project, we felt it was necessary, in fact, absolutely essential, to make a site visit. We found that the existing storefront is not historically or architecturally distinguished for the most part, and that the proposed storefront has several good qualities. It retains the historic masonry and fragments, it's well proportioned, apparently eliminates the obtrusive security gates, and retains the appropriate and distinctive retractable awnings. The row of operable transom windows is a nice feature, both functionally and architecturally. We did, however, on our site visit, notice that there are historic wood transom windows above the existing aluminum storefront, partially obscured by the roll-down gate. And it's possible that there might be reason to tweak the design a little to account for that historic fabric that remains. We might ordinarily find that the mosaic tile artwork calls undue attention to itself in a storefront, but in this context, it seems to us an appropriate and laudable addition. Finally, we found that the cheese Danish are as good as ever, as is the cherry cheese strudel. Therefore, we are pleased to urge approval of this proposal.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say briefly that this is the last testimony the Victorian Society will be giving this year, as I think it's the last hearing of the year. And on behalf of the Preservation Committee, I just want to say that we appreciate the Commission's attentiveness to our often lengthy testimony. And even though you often disagree with it, we'll see you again in the new year.
All right. Well, we appreciate your feedback and testimony. So thank you very much. All right. And then we'll turn it to Gregory to see if there are any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised in the attendees list, that being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Okay, so please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. The cherry cheese Danish is also very close to my heart. HDC is pleased to support this application. We're happy to see this applicant support public art at this site, and we look forward to its installation.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 9 recommends conditional approval with the requirement that the proposed storefront roll-down security gates be open mesh. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So if you'd like to respond to any of the comments we've heard, you're welcome to.
No, thank you all for your support. Philip bakes himself, so I'm sure he's very excited.
Okay, all right, and just...
Oh, yes. We would want to clarify that originally we presented the project with security gates and removed them as we worked with the community board, and that's why their comments. So no security gates, which we're very happy about.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, let's make a motion to close the hearing. Vice Chair Bland, would you make a motion?
So moved.
You, Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion on this proposal for a new storefront. It does not involve removing historic storefronts, although we can look at the transoms in the field. But assuming that there is not enough fabric there, the proposal would include this new anodized silver storefront with operable windows and artwork, which would be sort of consistent with the longstanding artwork that's been here. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Well, I got to this morning due to the trouble I had to do on the one of the Lexington Avenue subway lines, and it was showing tile work that I normally don't go through that station, and I was so impressed with it. Now I think with the testimony that with the Victorian Society that we're going to end with your testimony that this must be a services site. I can't wait to see it. I wish I only knew about this shop when I was doing the case study on St. John, the cathedral. I was busy across the street and being hungry, got back on the subway, not realizing what I missed across the street. So totally appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg.
Totally appropriate. I first went to the shop in '79 when I lived nearby, and I wish I was nearer sometimes.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. This is very hard for me because I love this place, and part of the reason I love it is because it is so kind of cruddy. And no offense, but I think that's a plus. But so in fixing it up, it's a fine line you have to tread between, making it nicer than it should be to take it away from itself. But I think this kind of threads that needle okay. I think the presence of the artwork is central to the space, and kind of the pixelization of it and formalization of it. It takes it away from the junkie and into the arty, but I think it holds up. It holds up enough with the anodized aluminum. I think especially that even curmudgeons like me will find it appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapin.
Well-known neighborhood institution, and Columbia students love it as well as local artists and writers. And anyway, just great place. And I think it's perfect. I think the restoration, hits it right in the right spot of memorializing things and kind of lifting it up from being graffitied and kind of having all the issues that it's had. So I think it's great, and certainly can approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree. I think it's a great idea to memorialize the artwork like this.
Yeah. Commissioner Jefferson.
Beautifully done.
Commissioner Master.
So I went to grad school at Columbia. So this is actually part of my memories of the streetscape, part of the familiar neighborhood. So I'm very happy to find it's appropriate.
Good. Commissioner Chu.
I haven't been there. I need to go, but I think it's appropriate, and I can see that you're self-referencing with the anodized, because my reaction was maybe it should have been a darker color in that film, but I think it's appropriate.
And Vice Chair Bland.
True confession from an NYC sort of guy. I don't even know this. I've got to get on a subway and head up there and check it out. I think this is wonderful. What a wonderful way to end today and even the year. So it's spectacular, very appropriate, and thank you for bringing it to us, all of you who presented.
Great, thank you very much. So I think we're in agreement. And Commissioner Chen, would you make the motion?
Delighted to. In the matter of LPC 23-10724-1030 Amsterdam Avenue, aka 500 and 502 West 111th Street. 1028 to 1034 Amsterdam Avenue. The application is to replace storefronts, install artwork, security gates, and light fixtures, and install awnings. Noting the building's style, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architecture and historic character of the Morningside Historic District. Further noting that the current tenant, the Hungarian pastry shop, has occupied the storefront since 1961. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural or historic features, that the existing storefronts are not architecturally significant, and but the presence of painted artwork had a long tradition as a feature of this historic long-term tenant, and therefore the replacement of the storefront infill with storefront infill of a similar design, configuration, and material, and incorporating permanent artwork of a similar design in mosaic tile will maintain and enhance the historic character of the building and the streetscape. That the new storefront infill will harmonize with the various storefront on the building, and that the existing awning slightly larger than the storefront openings and installed before designation will be reinstalled, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the Monterey Heights Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
With pleasure, second.
Thank
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Shu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you very much. Good luck. Thank you, commissioners, for all of your hard work. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.